Hey, what's up, guys? Max here. Again, I'm back in the college. We're working on chapter 8 of this, The Marks We Make. So you kind of figure out where Lance and Keith are starting to get along with each other. And now, I don't know, this is where they draw their lines up, coming to bad terms. Because remember, soulmates can have a good and bad terms. Lance and Keith would understand how they feel about each other and just get into something more of an issue. We'll figure out what's going on with this chapter. Oh yeah, there are a couple of things this chapter is that there are some mentioning the talk of a minor character death. If you're into subject parent to that, you could skip this into the time frame because I'll tell you what's the time frame. Same thing as some mild brief NSFW. So there's going to be a brief NSFW, some crazy sexual stuff, and if you don't want that, you could skip it and you could see the time frame of where you don't want to see some me talking about what I'm reading in that section. If you don't like some of the stuff, they'll tell I'm gonna tell you what time frame is it. It could be in the screen or it could be in this video. So whatever it is, it's there for you, and we will come back to you when it's time. Okay, Let's just hit this chapter 8. Okay, so we're gonna get this over with. Let's get some juicy situation here, and yeah, have at it. Okay, chapter 8. Sue folds scars. Grease on his hands, the smell of oil in the air, sharp and pungent, acrid and thick. It mixes with the smell of concrete, the smell of gasoline, of salt and sweat and struggle of his deodorant, sharp and spicy, withering on a losing fight. His hair is pulled back, tight into a messy bun, but he can feel it loosen. Wayward strands stuck and plastered to the sweat drying on his skin. It's a hot day for October. Clouds hover in a crystalline sky, but the sun shines through, beats down on his back, warming him through and through. The back of his neck and his shoulders burn, but he doesn't mind the itch. He can barely tell it apart from the restlessness that crawls beneath his skin. Despite the heat of the day, the breeze is crisp and cold, a momentary reprieve that brings with it much needed relief. He knows if he goes into the shadows, it'll be much cooler. Knows that come nightfall, it'll be chiller. Near cold, fall is here after all. But for now, he bakes in the sun, and he welcomes it. He wonders if it was also a warm day 17 years ago, or if it was one of those autumn days where you can feel winter's creeping touch in the air. He wonders if the sun was shining, or if it was raining. He wonders if the sunlight warmed his father's passing, or if the calm of night had been there when he slipped away. His mom had never told him what time he had been. He had never asked. Now, hearing a no, he hisses, pulling his hand back sharply, waving it in the air as the sting fades into a dull ache. He sits back on his heels to look at the damage. Just a small cut, right at the curve of his wrist, just below the protective gloves he wears. Figures. He puts the skin to his mouth, sucking away the beating blood. His skin tastes of salt and of metal. There's the vague undertones of oil and grease, bitter and sharp on his tongue. By the time he pulls away, the cut has already clotted, leaving nothing but a long red line across his skin. He had worse, but it shouldn't have happened at all. He's usually meticulous when he works on his bike. It puts him at ease. It clears his head. His thoughts drift away while his hands work, centering him, giving him something real and constructed to put his energy toward. He's careful and precise and handles every piece with care. He rarely ever hurts himself when he works on his bike, but somehow he manages to do it every year on October 18th. His bike doesn't even need maintenance. He hasn't been using it often now that he's within walking distance of his class. He's been having no problems with the way she runs, and she isn't due for a tune-up for a while. But he had woken with the same itch under his skin that he wakes up with every year. It's a living thing, a burn at the back of his throat, a crawling underneath his skin, restless hands that need focus, need a task, need to do something. It's a need to move, to construct, to work. It's a churning in his gut and a vague sense of nausea that he can never really rid himself of. It's the feeling of suspension, of hanging on the edge, balance precarious and feeling as if he might fall with every passing breeze. It's a restless mind that refuses to focus or settle on anything. So he has to work, has to keep his hands busy so his mind can stop buzzing, has to satisfy the twitch in his fingers and busy himself to ignore the twisting of his stomach and the feeling of not quite being able to breathe. So even though his bike doesn't need maintenance, he works on her anyway, just like he does every year on October 18th, rain or shine, hot or cold. He woke up unable to focus on much else. He had crawled out of bed with a restless energy brimming beneath his skin, skipped breakfast, knowing his churning stomach wouldn't be able to hold it down, had relentlessly cleaned up his apartment before grabbing his tools, stuffing them in the compartment beneath his bike's seat, and drove over to Shiro's. Shiro had greeted him with a silent smile, sympathy and understanding in his eyes, and a whole pot of coffee. He spent every other October 18th in his grandpa's garage, surrounded by tools and the smells of sawdust, leather, and metal, oil and gasoline. This time he doesn't have that, so he makes do with what he was. His own apartment's parking lot is too small and far too open, subject to a lot of the foot traffic from students walking by to and from their classes. Shiro's apartment is much more remote, on its own, away from the hustle and bustle of campus. It's bigger too, give him plenty of privacy as he parks his bike in an empty corner and sets to work. He doesn't know how long he's been at it. Hours probably, judging from the ache in his arms and shoulders, the stiffness of his back and neck. The sun seems to be getting lower, shadows stretching longer, and the light getting that warmer hue that comes with late afternoon. His phone sits next to him, laying through his October 18th playlist, but he doesn't bother looking at the time. He is hungry, but he can't wait. Shiro comes out with every once in a while to check on him, brings him a new water bottle when he sees Keith has gone through the one he's had. Ask him what he wants for dinner, even though they both know it's gonna be greasy food burgers. On surface level, he's annoyed by Shiro's hovering, feels his presence like a pressure against the back of his neck, doesn't like being watched when he feels this precariously vulnerable, but he doesn't mind. Not really. Shiro's parking lot isn't the only reason he's here. He also just wants to be near family, even if he doesn't want to interact. Just having them close, having them be there when he's done. It's enough. He just wants them close. He's picked his bike apart in segments, pulling parts out, cleaning them, putting them back. He's changed the oil and checked all the fluids. With the sun starting to fall and the queasiness that comes with hunger twisting in his gut, he knows it's time to wrap things up. He could use a shower, fresh clothes. He feels sticky and warm and covered in grime, but it goes hand in hand with the burn of his muscles, and a sense of pride, a sense of accomplishment, a sense that, if his father was still alive, if he had known Keith, that he might be proud. He's in the process of putting the last pieces back onto his bike, shiny and pristine, in the early evening light, when his phone rings, interrupts his music, phone buzzing noisily on the concrete beside him. He looks to it with a frown, knowing that it's too early for his grandparents to call. He knows they will, but they also know he likes to spend the daylight hours working, and wouldn't contact him until evening. He is convinced that anyone else calling right now, today of all days, will be an annoyance. He's proved wrong when he sees Lance's name across the screen, accompanied by a selfie of him, making a face with over-exaggerated pouty lips and smoldering eyes. He had told Keith's phone when they set it as his contact photo. Keith had never changed it. All at once, the irritation rising up his throat vanishes, leaving a strange tingling sensation in its wake. He grabs for his phone before he can think twice, because it feels right. Because despite how off kilter he feels today, he feels a strange sense of breathless anticipation at the thought of talking to Lance. It might be a bad idea, but he doesn't care. It feels right. After a few failed attempts to unlock his phone, he bites the tip of his glove between his teeth, ignoring the acidic taste and the smell of oil and grease. He pulls his work glove off, letting it drop before he swipes across his phone with a thumb and holds it to his ear. Hello? He hopes he doesn't sound as breathless as he feels. Keith? The tight knot unwinds in his chest, one he hadn't even realized was there. His shoulders slump, air rushing out of him as the released tension causes his lips to threaten a smile. Hey, Lance. Hey, man. There's a strange relief in his voice, his own oozing attention, but there's also an edge of worry, one that has the smile fading from Keith before it can really form. You okay? It's not a question that he wants to hear, nor one that he wants to answer. Why wouldn't I be? You weren't in class soon, and Pitch was being super dodgy about it when you didn't meet us at the coffee shop, and you haven't been answering any of my texts. Let's breath. Oh, so I just wanted to know if you're alright. Truthfully, no. He doesn't know why he says it. Doesn't know why he doesn't just brush off the question. Tell Lance he's fine. This isn't something he likes to talk about. It isn't something he shares with people. This is an I'm fine situation through and through. Yet, as he hears the general worry in Lance's voice, he finds himself being honest. Lance has a way of making him face himself, and he's not sure he likes it. Oh, well, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but I'm here to listen if you do. I know you've got a whole emo thing going on, and sometimes you gotta do your brooding and all that, but I'm here, dude. Keith leans against his bike, resting his free arm against the seat and over the red and black body of it. He leans his head against his forearm, eyes drifting close. Everything smells strongly of leather and metal, the chemicals he uses to clean them. Oil and gasoline, grease and fluids, sweat and concrete, and the fading edge of his deodorant. It's sour and bitter and acrid, but it smells like home. It smells like his grandpa's garage, where he taught Keith about engines and tools and cars. It reminds him of hands rough and calloused through years of a passion for physical labor. It reminds him of the day he spent learning how to work on bikes together, where he spent years fixing up his dad's old bike, the one thing he had left of a man he's never known. His mom gave him paints and colors, an eye for details and the abstract, an appreciation for creation, an outlet for when he feels too much and his mind is too busy. His dad gave him tools and bikes, a love of hard-won labor and appreciation for building with his hands, an outlet for when he needs to calm his mind and release pent-up restlessness. And his grandparents helped him cultivate these outlets when the figures in his life were gone, gave him a studio in the garage, gave him paints and tools, painted with him, worked with him. The oil in paints, the oil in an engine, they both bring him comfort. He can hear Lance's breathing over the phone, the sound of cars running past and muted voices. He must have called on his way back from class. Suddenly aware of how long he's been sitting there in silence, and how long Lance has been waiting patiently, giving him time to collect himself. He licks his lips. His mouth is dry. Swallowing past the lump in his throat is hard. It's October 18th. There's a pause, just long enough for him to really analyze just how scratching and hoarse his voice had been, and how much he hates it. Yeah, not gonna lie, buddy, but I don't know what that means. He's never had to explain what October 18th meant. Everyone important has always known. Ian Page knows, and he's fairly certain it's because Cheryl told him. It's, he's already come this far. He can't brush it off now, and this strange realization that he doesn't want to brush it off. He wants Lance to know. It's a realization that feels like buzzing in his chest, threatening to choke him. It's the anniversary of my dad's passing. Oh, oh, dude, I'm sorry. Panic. Key doesn't need panic. Lance, it's okay. It was a long time ago. I just like to take this day to myself. Yeah, I get that. You had churros? Yeah, I've been here all day. That's good. I'm glad you have each other. It's not Cher's dad. He lets out a shortened breath. My dad. My biological dad. Oh, I never really knew him. He doesn't know why he's saying this. And he died when I was really young. He should stop. Lance didn't ask. Lance doesn't need him to dump this on him. So it's pretty stupid to mourn for a guy I never knew and never raised me. He feels the telltale burning behind his eyes, and he squeezes them shut tighter, swallowing past the lump in his throat. But if things had been different, he might have. He could have. Keith, Keith, hey, it's okay. There's a genuine worry in his voice. Panic and social embarrassment giving way to something much deeper, much fonder. An instinctual need to comfort that's just so entirely Lance. What a selfless old. There's nothing stupid about that, dude. He was your dad. And if you're gonna mourn him, you gotta mourn him. There's nothing wrong with honoring his memory. He's a part of you. Thanks, Lance, he whispers, afraid that speaking too loudly will cause his voice to crack. And, you know, he must have been super hot to have a kid like you. Lance, I'm just saying. A surprised laugh bubbles out of him, shoving past the lump in his throat and bursting from his lips. It's cracked and hoarse. It almost hurts with the way it shudders in his lungs, squeezing his chest and shaking his body. He can hear the unshed tears in it, the watery and thick quality of it. It's not a pretty laugh, but it's a genuine one. And just like that, tension drains away. Lance babbles on, and Keith can practically hear the skip in his step. He tells Keith about how boring their public speaking class is without him. Tells him how Pitch fell asleep in their 9 a.m. class, and it drew a heart on their cheek before they woke up. Tells him how the coffee shop on campus always gets his order wrong. He talks about everything. The weather, how he stained his favorite shirt, how Honk has been up late playing games with Shay, how he saw someone in the bathroom brushing their teeth with the wrong end of the toothbrush at 8 a.m. He talks about nothing. Nothing of consequence anyway. Random thoughts, random reports from his day. And Keith listens. He hums occasionally. He adds input when needed and prompted. He laughs, chuckling breathlessly when Lance gets worked up over nothing. Phone pinched between his cheek and his shoulder. He listens while his hands finish putting his bike back together. And when he's done, he sits on the hard concrete back to his bike and watches the sunset while he tries to explain to Lance the intricacies of art in the Middle Ages from memory in an attempt to help him study. He stays there until Cheryl comes out to find him, car keys twirling on his finger as he smiles that infuriatingly knowing smile. It's not until he hangs up that he realizes they've been talking for 3 hours. It's not until he elbows up in burger grease and fries that he realizes this is the lightest he's ever felt on October 18. Guys, guys, could you ever imagine that you never forget about the date of the day someone's passing away? Yeah, Keith remembers about the October 18, and that is the day that Keith's dad passed away. You could have felt like you saw someone died on that day, and it's pretty terrifying. It's horrible. And I'm gonna tell you guys this one for last year because you're gonna tell me the story. Because last year on March, it's the middle of my mom's birthday. It isn't, yes, in fact, my mom's birthday, and he passed away on my mom's birthday. And now we're gonna celebrate two. This time we're celebrating two occasions. It's a positive negative day, so it's a plus minus day on March 9. For us, it's a plus minus day. Plus means it's my mom's birthday because I love my mom so much. Love you, mom. And And the negative because it's my grandfather's passed away, and yeah, now we're celebrating two occasions in one day, so it's a positive and negative. For Keith, it's very different, and he never forgets about the October 18, or he's gonna put 10/18. This is the time where he fixes his bike and make sure she's working. Yeah, I understand now where this goes, and I totally understand the story because you know I liked it very much. But it kind of worries about Keith because family is very important for him first, and he likes it. Hey, Keith, what do you think? He lifts his head, tearing his eyes away from the two packages in his hand. Fidge stands not too far away, holding up a palette of cheap Halloween makeup to their face. Am I more of a graveyard glamour? They lift up another palette to their other cheek, fluttering their eyelashes. Or an undead temptation? The two grayscale palettes look almost exactly the same. The corner of his lips lift into a small smirk. I say, go with the soulless seductress. Pitch snorts, lowering the packages from their face. Good choice. They toss them both into the cart next to Keith, leaning heavily on the handlebar, arms crossed and chin resting on top. How many more we need? Keith raises an eyebrow, eyes idly scanning over the array of face paint packages littering the bottom of the cart. Enough for 7 people? Another snort, and I roll. Brilliant deduction, Keith. How am I supposed to know? You're the artist. Doesn't mean I go around painting my face. Said her limbs and body parts, maybe, but very rarely his face. Which one do you think? He holds up the 2 bottles of fake blood. Pitch cocks an eyebrow. What's the difference? He shrugs. Different brands? Same size? Yeah, get cheaper one. He hums his acknowledgement, tossing the bottle into the cart and setting the other back on the shelf. He grabs a few more kits with brushes and liquid latex and dumps them into the cart as well. Paige watches him, one foot propped up on the bottom rung of the cart, chins on their arms. Is it enough now? He glances into the cart once more. This person. I don't know. Probably. Use your artist eye, Keith. I don't usually work with cheap Halloween makeup, bitch. I don't know how much this stuff we need to use, or how well it spreads, or if it's even layers properly. Okay, okay, I get it. They reach out and grab a handful more of Vera's zombie makeup palettes, dropping them into the cart with a clatter. When he raises a silent brow, they just shrug. They're cheap. Might as well. Do we need any of that? He looks to what they're pointing at, eyes falling on the line of base sealers. Their logos look campy, and the fonts of their brands far too costumey. His lip curls. No, Allura said she has plenty for us to use. The good kind, not the kind that goes on like paste. Fish lets out a brief sigh. Thank God. I was not looking forward to scrubbing that out my pores for a week. He gives them a blank look, one eyebrow cocked. They just shrug. If you're friends with Lance long enough, you start thinking about these sort of things. He does have that effect on people. He hums, arms crossing over his chest as his gaze sweeps over the shelves of zombie-themed Halloween accessories. He wouldn't leave me alone until I stopped buying 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. Now, I have one of each. I can hear the lip curl in Bitch's voice. Yeah, he did that to me too. I can't feel the difference. Me neither. But he's drilled the habit into me. Now, I can't go back. Same. What a pain. But he's our pain. Yeah, Pitch voice softens. A fondness creeping around the edges. I suppose he is. Something Keith flutters at the sentiment, replying in kind. He doesn't know how to voice it, however, so instead, he drops into a crouch, running his finger over a few of the more expensive zombie kits. They don't need them, but maybe he'll get a few ideas by looking at the packaging. His friends made it no secret that they fully expect him and Karan to take charge of everyone's zombie makeup. The zombie march is somewhat of a tradition, or so Pitch and Lance insist. This is only the second year their school has hosted one. Seems a little sketchy to Keith. A bunch of social media invites and a page hosted by one of the school's clubs on the website. A bunch of students dressing up as zombies go meandering through town and scarring innocent bystanders. What could possibly go wrong? Sounds fun though, so he's in. Not that his friends would let him back out of it. I'm glad you guys are getting along now. He glances up, finding that Pitch is watching him. Eyes content and small smile genuine. Me too. He feels a lump in his throat. A twist of guilt in his gut even as a strange fluttering riles up his chest. For a while there, I didn't think you guys would get along. He looks away, pushing himself to his feet. He's a lot, but he's a good guy. Yeah, Pitch fidgets, eyes on the contents of the cart, teeth biting at their bottom lip. I just, it would have been really hard if two of my best friends didn't get along. You know, the guilt feels sour on the back of his tongue. Hates that he made Pidge worry. Hates that he made them feel like they might have to choose between friends. Hates that he never made them feel guilty for trying to combine their friends' groups. He had been so caught up in his own that he hadn't considered what distress his treatment of Lance might have caused one of his oldest friends. He's a fucking hole. He walks past him, heading down the aisle, and ruffles their hair as he passes him. You're a good judge of people. If you liked us both, odds are that we'd get along eventually. Pidge helps a short laugh, turning the cart around to follow him. Yeah, you guys sure as hell fought it for a while. He hums, unable to really argue at that point. He had fought it. He had fought it in ways Pidge isn't even aware of, and still he lost the fight. Because when it comes down to it, he's weak to Lance. He doesn't know how much of that has to do with being soulmates, and how much of it is simply who they are, but Keith finds it near impossible to resist him. Not that he tries much anymore. Keith, hmm? You know, it's a zombie march, right? They deadpan, almost sounding bored. Not a vampire march. He purses his lips, a slight furrow to his brows as he stubbornly keeps his gaze fixed on the rows of vampire teeth, the fancy ones that he can mold to his own teeth for a better fit. I'm just looking. Sure. If you get to be zombie Dumbledore, then I should be able to get a zombie vampire. That's like two completely different things. I'm talking about bringing back a beloved character from the dead with a craving for brains. You're talking about crossing the streams of the undead. Didn't know you were the graveyard police. Their mouth tugs up into a devilish grin, crinkling the corners of their eyes. You have the right to remain silent as the grave. Keith huffs a short laugh, lips pulling up at the edges, still holding onto the handlebar of the car. Peach leans over toward him, pressing their shoulder into his. Anything you say can and will be used to bury you. You have the right to a headstone. If you can't afford a headstone, one will be provided for you, along with a hilarious eulogy. Here's the telltale squeak of a shoe on cheap linoleum floors, not to have a place in the public store, save for the fact that it's right behind him. That, coupled with the soft footfalls and the heavy breathing, clues him in. Hitch didn't seem to notice. He presses his lips tight to hide the smile that threatens to give them away. Do you understand your rights? If yes, groan loudly. If no, ask for brain. It all happens at once. Lance and Hunk jump out at them, feet slapping loudly on the linoleum as they land. Lance is right at Pidge's side, hands in the air. Hunk is directly behind him, hands landing heavily on Pidge's shoulders. They shout, something garbled between them at the sounds, like a mix between a roar and boo. Pidge's words cut off, trailing to a high-pitched scream as they jump. Keith doubles over, surprise laughter bubbling up his throat before it can stop him. It's echoed by Hunk's soft chuckles and Lance's full-bed laugh. Pidge! Oh my god! Lance steps back, pulling off the werewolf mask. It's ugly as hell, made of fur and stained rubber twisted into a mockery snarl. Oh man, you should have seen your face. Oh! He stumbles backwards, tripping over his own feet and nearly losing his balance before he manages to turn, taking off down the aisle with Pidge, hot on his heels. As they round the corner, he can hear Pidge's profanities and Lance laugh trail off through the store. Oh man, Pitch is gonna kill him. Hunk says, laughter still hedging his voice as he pulls off his own mask. It's the same grotesque werewolf one. Keith turns to him, arms crossed over his chest, and an easy smirk on his face. What makes you think you're safe? Hunk just grins. Because they'll take their anger out of Lance first. Hey, why didn't you jump? Keith just shrugs, easy smile in place. He finds he's been smiling a lot these days, and doesn't entirely have to do with Lance. I heard you coming. Dang, and here I was, thinking we were being sneaky. Your shoes squeak on the floor, and I could hear Lance snickering under his desk. Well, we tried. At least we got pitch. They both wince as they hear the telltale sound of something clattering to the ground, simultaneous with several loud profanities. They exchange wry glances, and Hunk offers him a small smile. If they get in trouble, wanna we pretend we don't know them? Definitely. With one last long glance at the shelf, he decides, get his zombie is gonna have teeth, and tosses one of the boxes into the cart. Honk falls into step beside him as he starts pushing the cart down the aisle, eyes on the grotesque mask in his hands. I kinda wanna be a werewolf. Do you think they let werewolves join the zombie march? Like, they could probably put their differences aside and work together to eat people, right? He looks up thoughtfully, head tilting to the side as his voice trails off. Or would the zombies just eat werewolf brains? I bet those are better than human brains. A delicacy or something. Keith hums softly. I can make you a werewolf zombie. Hunk turns to look at him, eyes widening. Really? Keith glances sideways at him, smile fading as his gaze drops to the mask in his hand. Yeah, but not with the mask. Hunk is nodding, mask already falling to his side. His other hand moves to his face, scratching a day's worth of stubble. So, like, we could get fake ears and fake hair and stuff? He nods. Yeah, that should work. The rest is just zombie makeup. Oh man, this is gonna be so cool. The conversation is cut short as Lance comes sprinting around the corner, nearly crashing into the shelves. He dives behind Keith, hands grabbing his arm to pull him away from the cart, putting him between himself and Paige, who comes barreling down the stubble. Keith, save me! He won't protect you. Keith is my knight in shining armor. Go! Defeat the foul gremlin. Nope. Keith is already peeling Lance's fingers off his arms, slipping off to the side. Not getting in the middle of this. Keith! His protest cuffs off in a yell as Paige lunges for him. Keith watches, arms crossed over his chest and eyebrows raised, as Paige manages to scale the lanky, riffing form of Lance, someone they barely get deterred by an elbow to the gut, flailing limbs, and the fact that Lance is wriggling something fierce. Finally, the fight leaks out of him as Paige settles onto his back, and he accepts defeat graciously as his hands move to grab her legs, one arm wrapped tight around his neck, head hovering over his shoulder. They point forward. Onward! When did you get so heavy? Paige smacks him blindly, hands sprawling out over his face. No back sass, only carry. Lance grumbles, but leads the way out of the aisle, muttering a soft betrayal at Keith as he passes. Keith just smiles, following with a hunk and a cart. They weave through the store, away from the seasonal Halloween section and towards the front registers. As they go, they pass by the grocery section, including tables in the aisles with small cakes and cookies put out on display. He has the thought just a second before Paige voices it. Hey, Keith, we should pick up the key while we're here. Lance turns, walking backwards with Paige still on his back so he can face Keith. Why you guys need a cake? Keith is about to brush up before Paige answers for him. It's Keith's birthday tomorrow. What? Lance says, loud enough that Keith flinches to the volume. He stops, foot shooting out to catch the bottom of the cart and bring it to an abrupt halt. His brows are furrowed, lips twisted into a low frown. He almost looks concerned. Is your birthday tomorrow? Yeah. Dude, why didn't you tell us? He turns and regrets it immediately when he sees the hurt written all over Honk's face, coloring his surprise. He frowns, straightening a little under scrutiny. It's not a big deal. It's your birthday. Keith lets one shoulder rise and fall in a half-hearted shrug. I don't like making a big deal about it. Key and I usually just have a movie marathon and make ourselves sick on cake, Hitch says. We should have a party. Key looks at Lance sharply. Scout deepening. I don't want a party. Pitch perches their chin atop Lance's head, arms hanging lazily over his shoulders. Key doesn't like parties. He sighs, rubbing an eye harshly before dragging the hand down his face with a sigh. Look, it's not a big deal. I don't want it to be a big deal, but it is a big deal, Lance says, inclination softening at his shoulders, droops slightly. If he starts pouting, Keith is gonna lose this fight. No parties, he insists. Lance huffs. Fine. Keith's eyes narrow. Scout's honor. Why don't I believe you? Hunk's hand comes down on his shoulder, tearing his attention away from Lance. His smile is genuine, eyes pleading. No parties, but at least let me make you a real cake. No friend of mine gets store bought on their birthday. And when he looks around at their expectant faces, smiles soft and eyes alight with genuine fondness and excitement, Keith knows he's lost. He sighs, feeling the fight leak out of him. Fine. Keith, Lance, Pidge, and Honk, they're at the part. No, they're at the store. They're gonna buy something for their Halloween. Because, no, their school's theme right now is zombie. All dressed up in zombies, wearing makeups. And they're gonna have to find something for, no, for their part. Right, for their Halloween. And then Henry realized that it's Keith's birthday, and Vanessa's Kate, and they should have a party because Keith likes it. No, actually, Keith doesn't like it. Lance convinces him to have a party on Keith's birthday. And then after losing his fight with Lance, he said, no, fine, let's just have a party. Okay, and yeah, that's how we settled ourselves, and they're prepped enough for their no for the Halloween and Keith's birthday. I think it's I think it's not a combination, but it's just something else. But we'll see. We'll see. Keith, hmm, to Keith. Allura, come in, Keith. Can't hear you. You're staring. What? You're staring at Lance. That gets his attention, especially since it's spot on. He tears his eyes away from Lance and Hunk, attempting to balance two PVC pipe brooms on their foreheads. Neither of them are particularly successful, but it's amusing to watch them try anyway. Lynn spread wide and wobbling around to keep it balanced. Allura stands next to him on the other side of the field, near one set of hoops. Hunk and Lance are on the other side, with nearly the whole team mingling in the field in between. Practice was winding down, and Pitch had issued a water break between drills, though he's fairly certain practice shouldn't be over soon. I was just staring out over the team, he says, lips pursed into a small frown. One end of her PVC pipe broom is set on the ground, both of her hands clasped over the end of it. She leans over, lazily bending over as she rests her cheek up top her hands, grinning at Keith. He really doesn't like that gleam in her eyes. Yeah, over all of them and right at Lance. He feels he crawl up at the back of his neck. His own broom is slung over his shoulders, arms held up a loop hazily over the top, so his wrists hang over the other side. I was watching both of them. Laura hums, but she doesn't sound convinced. His eyes narrow, brows pinching as he scowls. What? Nothing, she shrugs, nonchalant and casual, but the calculating look in her eyes is anything but. The way her lips curl at the edges is mischievous. A predator stalking its prey. He knows that look because he's seen it far too many times mirror on Cher's face, right before it calls attention to something Keith would rather remain unsaid. It was like the universe put them together to make Keith's life miserable. You've been just staring at lawns a lot, lady. There it is. That casual tone, that's definitely not casual. No, I haven't. He looks away, unable to hold her gaze anymore. He hopes the gesture looks irritated and exasperated, and not guilty and embarrassed. He half turns, letting his eyes sweep out over the field, and pointedly not letting his attention settle on Lance. Instead, his gaze lands on Pidge. They're standing off to the side while the pile of bags the team has left, alongside the large Quidditch bag. They're crouched down, their phone in hand, roused Finch in concentration. You totally have, Lauren says. I've seen it. You've been staring at lawns. Have not. Have too. Have not. Have too. Laura, I can go on this like this all day, Keith. His eye-sharp glare is met by a toothy grin that reminds him so much of Shiro and so much of Lance. He hadn't realized how terrible that combination would be until he sees it in Allura, and he feels his chest constrict before his heart beats into overtime. He's so... She takes his silence as a cue to continue. I asked Shiro about it. She says it offhandedly as she straightens, keeping her hands on the end of her broom but standing up tall. Her gaze lifts Her gaze shifts from him to across the field, and he knows without looking at it it's set on Lance. Somehow, not being the target of her gaze doesn't make him feel any more at ease. Her grin shifts into something that fraction more sly and a hair too innocent. Did you know Shiro is a terrible liar? She looks at him sideways, full lips curling. He is going to kill Shiro. His stomach feels like it's dropped straight into his gut, and his heart is pounding so loud it's trying to break out of his ribs. The buzz of anxiousness flits through his veins, making everything fuzzy and light, but it gives her a scowl that could peel paint. She's not in the least bit affected. She merely rolls her eyes, waving off with a placating hand gesture. Calm down. He didn't tell me anything specific. She sounds a little put off by that. But his awkward fumbling was enough to let me know that there is something going on. Laura, he means for it to sound stern, like a warning and a threat, all wrapped into one. It comes up something far more desperate, an edge of pleading and fear that he really didn't want to show. At least she takes pity on him then, smiles something as she turns to him. It's not a big deal. You know, you're allowed to look. Hell, you're allowed to touch, if it's mutual. Which, given the way he's been staring at you, it probably is. He doesn't like how close to the truth she's gotten. Not at all. Not one bit. Have they really been that obvious? She picks up her broom and steps toward him, playfully nudging him with her shoulder. I just want you to be happy, okay? Things aren't as traditional as they used to be. You guys are allowed to find your own happiness. He sighs, feeling a fraction of the weight lift from his chest, his heart rate calming down. She chuckles, soft and under her breath, tapping his shins on her broom. Jeez, line up. Just because we have soulmates doesn't mean we have to be prudes. And it definitely doesn't mean we can't find others attractive. We're only human. Something about the way she said that has him turning, giving her a curious once over. Did you do anything with anyone before Shiro? She hums slightly, lifting her chin as she slings her broom over her shoulders to mirror Keith's stance. If I did, would you think any less of me? No. Then yeah, I definitely did. And I don't regret it. She shrugs. Besides, none that even compare to Shiro, and I doubt that has anything to do with being soulmates. Your brother is fine. His lip curls. Gross. She laughs. She laughs, and just like that, the tension between them dissipates. She has suspicions, but she doesn't know. More than that, she doesn't know the secret Keith keeps. She might be a bad liar, but at least Laura isn't as good as reading him as she thinks she is. Keith! They both look up at Lance that jogs up to them, and Keith lowers his broom in time for Lance to sling an arm around his shoulders, pulling him roughly to his side. Hey, buddy! Keith eyes narrow. What are you up to? Me? Nothing. Sorry to interrupt, Aurora. I just want to pull birthday boy here aside for a moment. Oh, Laura's. shark-like grin is back. He's all yours. He glares at her as Lance drags him away. Lance, what did I say about making it a big deal? What? Keith, I said I wouldn't. Have a little faith in me. You sound suspicious. I do not. Your voice gets all high pitched when you're plotting something, and you start to sound like a cartoon villain trying to sound innocent right before he unveils his plans. I take offense to that. Keith cocks an eyebrow, his mouth tugging at his lips to define himself. Do you, though? I will, as long as it keeps you distracted. So, you are plotting something. Hunk! Now! His protest is cut off with a strangled sound as his feet are suddenly lifted out from under him. The world seems to spin for a moment, balance thrown completely as he loses control. When everything rightens again and he can process what's happened, he's perched on Hunk's shoulder, legs dangling over his chest, and one thick arm wrapped around him like a seatbelt. If he's honest, he's not even sure how they pull it off, and it's actually rather impressive. Allura and Lance stand around Hunk, hands hovering in the air, and prepared to steady him or catch him if things go wrong. They don't, though. Hunk is extremely sturdy. What are you? Oh God, please don't. Happy birthday to you. I hate all of you. Happy birthday to you. They parade him around the Quidditch pitch, perch and trap on Hunk's shoulder with Allure and Lance stand close by. Three of them lead the song, loud and boisterous. Lance by far the loudest, and Keith can hear the laughter in his voice. The whole team joins in, clapping, grinning, and singing off key. Students walking by stare or pause to view the spectacle. A few even join in. Key looks to the sidelines desperately in searching for Pidge to help him. Not that he thinks they would do much, but it's the best shot he has. Pidge, however, is nowhere to be seen. He groans, but the sound is easily drowned out by the sing. So he buries his face in his hands instead. I hate all of you. He repeats when the song ends, voice muffled through his hands. What was that? What was that? We can't hear you. He can hear the smile in Laura's voice. He said he loves us, Lance says, and Keith feels a hand pat his head. It just sounds weird because he's covering his mouth. Sorry, Keith. Hans was his edge with a laugh. But it's tradition to embarrass each other on our birthdays. I want out of his friend group. He grumbles, inciting a few more chuckles. Sorry, buddy. You're stick with us. You should be grateful. Usually, we do this in the middle of the cafeteria. His friend's fingers together a letter between them. She just grins, one hand on her hips as she uses the other to poke at Lance with her broom. Lon suggested we do it here instead. His gaze flickers to Lance, and he'd be blind to miss the way his expression turns sheepish as he scratches the back of his neck. Smile softened and smiles looking away, but not before Keith can see the fondness in them. No can wonder, Ulrich can sense there's something going on between them. I just thought this would be a little less embarrassing for your first time. Barely. Keith happens, letting his hands drop, tapping Hunk lightly on the arm, caging him. Can I get them now? Do you promise not to run away? No. Then nope. You trap here until... Oh, there you are. He turns, and Keith grips his arm as everything spins for a moment, his balance wobbling on his eye perch. Honk waves with his free arm, and Keith's chest tightens as his balance wavers again. It's not that he's afraid of heights, but it's not that he doesn't trust Honk. It's just it's like having absolutely no control over his own balance. He spots Pidge in the distance, walking alone with the path back to the field with Shira at their side. Both of them are carrying several pizza boxes. I thought Shira had work to do. He did, Laura says, but he agreed to pick up pizza and meet up at the end of practice. Today, just a random pizza party lunch for the team, Lance says, rocking back and forth on his heels, hands clasped on his broom behind his back. Absolutely nothing to do with your birthday. No, Honk says with a little bounce. No connection whatsoever. Laura calls over her shoulder, already moving forward to greet Sharon Page. You guys are the worst. He grumbles, but when he catches Lance's eye, he can feel that he's smiling. It's Keith's birthday. Happy birthday, Keith. Well, actually, it's not his birthday. That was like last month, I guess. That's just last month. That yeah, might be surprised that they're gonna have a birthday celebration, you know, in the Quidditch practice. I mean, at the Quidditch practice, and that would be interesting to have that birthday celebration in there. While there's a time into it, okay, I don't know. I was looking, but I don't know why he has that thought that he might be in the sense because it's his birthday. We already knew the reason why he wants to celebrate this birth like this, but whatever. He wants to celebrate his birthday the way he used to, but sorry, Keep. You're gonna stick into this whole friends and family thing into one, okay? You're not gonna escape Keith from their friends or whatsoever. They're not. They're not. His traditional birthday movie night with close friends, Pidge, sometimes Matt, and family, Shiro, turned into a movie night with all his friends, who have somehow become his own patchwork family. They gathered that night at Shiro's apartment for his bigger living room and bigger TV. They had eaten far too much pizza earlier, stuffing themselves just to make sure none of it went to waste. It was a late lunch, and most of them were still feeling the effects from it, so their dinner consisted of snacks and junk food that they picked up on the way to Shiro's. "Alright, pretty boy, what'll be this year?" Shiro asked, lifting his remote to turn on the TV. He's wedged onto his large cushioned chair, Allura at his side and half sprawled on top of him. Pidge speaks up before he can, straining a little from the small nest they built on the floor, out of pillows and blankets. "Paranormal activity. Keynote. Yeah, that." "What?" Lance's voice is a fraction too high and way too close to his ear. Keith frowns, rubbing his ear, but Lance just gapes at him, eyes wide and mouth hanging open. "What? Seriously?" "Yes. We already decided on this." Pitch cuts in, wrapping a blanket around themselves and burying their chin in it as they hunch down against the couch. "You can't change your mind now." "They always choose scary movies," Shiro says, already searching for it. "That or terrible movies." Pitch snorts. Scary movies are terrible movies." Honk leans forward to grin at Keith from around Lance. "Lance is scared of scary movies." Lance looks surprised, alarm morphs instantly into indignation as he glares at his roommate. "I'm not scared of them. I just don't like them." "Birthday's boy choice." Pidge sings songs from the floor. Lance nudges them with his foot. "I never said we couldn't watch it." "I am personally a fan of the horror genre," Karan says from the other side of the couch. "It's fascinating to see what kind of things force the human mind to paranoia and fear." With a thoughtful hum, he reaches into his pocket, producing a pen. Pulling the cap off with his teeth, and he puts the pen tip to his arm, already lost in the beginnings of a correspondence with his soulmate. No one seems to notice or think much of it, but Keith's gaze lingers, something unpleasant flipping in his gut before he looks away, and then leans into Lance. He doesn't have to go far. They're already pressed up close with four people wedged onto Cher's couch. Truth be told, they've already been touching since they sat down, thighs and arms pressed tight as casually as they could manage. But he leans more firmly into Lance, feeling his warmth like a buzz in his veins. He props his chin up on Lance's shoulder, and Lance turns to meet his gaze, eyebrows raised. "Itch and I like to pick apart horror movies. It'll make it less scary for you." Lance hops, crossing his arms over his chest, but when he slouches further down on the couch, he sinks into Keith's side. "I'm not scared." Hunk leans over from the other side, resting his chin on Lance's other shoulder. Lance is so slumped that it's an awkward angle for Hunk to be at, but he makes it work for the sake of mirroring Keith. "Don't worry, buddy. Keith and I will be here to hold your hands when you get scared." "I'm not scared." Keith and Hunk both laugh as Lance shoves them off his shoulders. Contrary to his protest, he spends most of the movie with his face hidden either behind his hands or in Hunk's arm. Hunk, contrary to his seizing, is right there with him. Two of them curl into each other, peeking from between fingers and jumping occasion. About halfway through the film, Lance reaches for Keith's hand, clutching it tightly. Keith weaves their fingers together, letting them rest on his thigh, thumb idly brushing along his knuckles. When he pulls his knees up onto the couch, he opts to lean his weight more towards Lance than the arm of the couch. If anyone notices, no one says anything. It's hard to find even the hand-holding strange when Lance's other hand is clutched in Hunks's, and his face is buried in his shoulder. Still, it's a subtle closeness that Keith appreciates, and judging from the way Lance lightly squeezes his hand in moments that aren't particularly scary, he knows Lance does too. After the movie, they decide to watch something a little lighter before calling it a night, but not before they take a break for Honk to distribute cupcakes and for them to sing happy birthday again. Keith is in the kitchen, refilling his glass, when Lance wanders in, hands full of cupcake wrappers to dump into the trash. By the time Keith has filled his glass, turning around to face him, Lance has already sauntered over, hands coming down on the counter on either side of him, caging him against it. "Enjoying your birthday so far?" he asked, voice far too low and far too sly to be anything innocent. Keith hummed slightly, taking a sip of his water. He doesn't miss the way Lance's gaze drips down to his mouth before sliding lower to linger on his throat. "I have a present for you later." Keith cocks an eyebrow. "Why can't you give it to me now?" Lance's eyes slide back up to his, a mischievous smile on his lips. "I really don't think you want me to give it to you now." A fluttering in his chest at Lance's smile, a shuddering down his spine at the wicked look in his lidded eyes, a warm flooding in his gut at the low rumble of his voice. Before he can't really think about it, he's setting his glass aside, reaching forward with his other hand, and letting it drift up Lance's chest. Lance's expression morphs into one of surprise as Keith's hand clutches the fabric of his shirt, pulling him forward roughly. Keith lets his mouth hover over Lance's for just a moment. Head tilted at the perfect angle. He can feel Lance's shallow breath fanning out across his lips. They're alone for the moment, kitchen hidden from view of those in the living room. "You have some frosting in your face," Keith says, voice pitchy and vibrant. He can feel the curl of Lance's lips as much as he can see. "Maybe you could clean that up for me." Keith smiles, a slow slight curl of his lips. He turns his head a fraction, tongue picking out to playfully trail across Lance's bottom lip. Then he flants his tongue and licks a wide, wet stripe up the side of Lance's face. Lance's soft hitch of breath quickly turns into a yelp, shoving Keith's shoulders as he scrambles backwards. "Oh, gross, Keith! My God!" Keith wraps one arm around his stomach, bending in half while the other keeps him propped up against the counter as he laughs. He laughs until he feels tears prickling at the corners of his eyes. All the while, Lance scrubs roughly at his face, muttering obscenities under his breath. It's Keith's birthday, so they decide to have a movie night, and they've watched Paranormal Activity. And Lance doesn't have a good taste of the scary movies because he doesn't like it. And he kept holding both of his arms, holding out to keep and hunk all at the middle of just scariness. And then after the movie, Keith went to refill the glass, and Lance told him that, Lance asked him that is he enjoying the party? Or was he enjoying the party? And he said he was. Lance asked he's got a present. So save that up to later. Let's say. Right. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. They end up cutting the movie night after two movies. Allura, Cheryl, and Corinne practically falling asleep where they sat, and the others yawning heavily. Birthday or not, it's still a weekday, and they have classes tomorrow. Keith is lucky enough to not have anything until 11, but the others aren't so fortunate. He returns to his apartment with a strange sense of stillness settling over him. After spending nearly all day with his friends, his apartment feels oddly empty. He lets his bag drop to the floor, keys falling into the bowl on his dresser, and stands there for a moment. There's a buzz of energy in his veins, making his body feel like a live wire when he stands still. It's a vibration in his bones, a need to move and act, left over from the build-up of doing things all day. There's also an exhaustion that comes from excessive socializing, a heaviness in his shoulders, and an ache in his muscles. quiet stillness of his apartment is as much of a relief as it is unwelcome. It's a strange realization for someone who cherishes silence and solitude. But the more he thinks on it, the more he realizes it's not complete socializing he misses. It's not the entire company of his friends he wishes he still had with him. It's just one, just Lance. He's certain that Lance would fit and feel right at home in his space, filling it with just enough noise and just enough movement, a warm presence to thaw the numbing solitude. And Keith knows with the chill crystal clear clarity that Lance's presence won't drain him in the slightest. It would ease him down from too social into just right, without the heavy drop of empty lethargy that happens when he goes from big groups to solitude too quickly. And he hates how much that realization thrills him as much as it terrifies him. He hates how the more he learns about Lance, the more they learn how to fit. Jagged little puzzle pieces that take time to find the right way to connect, but then clicking seamlessly into place, just like a soulmate should. He shakes his head, kicking off his shoes and heading for the bathroom, stripping his clothes off as he goes and leaving them in a trail on the floor. He takes a long hot shower where he decidedly thinks about nothing. Nothing doesn't exactly work, as nothing turns quickly into something as soon as he has to use both shampoo and conditioner. Then he thinks of Lance. Memories of Lance throughout the day start to etch into his mind. Not just Lance, all his friends. And the fact that this is the best birthday he's had in a long, long time. He'd be lying if he said Lance isn't a centerpiece. Would Lance be around for many more of his birthdays? Would B be around for Lance's? When thinking about nothing doesn't quite pan out, he pointedly fixates on school projects too soon, mentally organizing what he needs to do and when. He's out of the shower, pajama pants riding low on his hips, and a towel around his shoulders. When his phone buzzes, he looks up from where he's been pouring himself a glass of water, brow furrowed as he tries to mentally locate where he's last seen his phone. He finds it in the jeans he had discarded on the floor, and he isn't at all surprised to find a text from Lance waiting for him, along with the terrible name he had put in his contact photo that Keith finds far too amusing to change.
I have your birthday present ready for you. It wasn't ready literally 30 minutes ago when I last saw you. No, I couldn't do it then. I can give it to you now. That smile is mighty suspicious. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not sure if I should be worried or intrigued. It's probably a healthy mix of both, to be honest. It's a good way to approach most things in life, like eating an alligator for the first time. Worried because WTF alligator, but intrigued because WTF alligator. You feel like you're stalling. Shut up, I'm not stalling. I'm just getting courage to send this. What kind of present needs courage? This kind. Maybe receive. Ta-da! Happy birthday! Okay, so I realized I kinda sprung this on you suddenly because I convinced myself the surprise factor would be great. But you're giving me a lot of silence here, dude. Silence has like a 50-50 of being good or bad. And the longer this goes on, the more I'm leaning towards bad. Please, give me a sign. I didn't just stop.
Keith can see the text coming in, but he can't bring himself to look away from the picture. Lance sprawled out on his bed, jeans unbuttoned and unzipped, pushed low on his hips to reveal his boxers, one arm holding his phone high while the other lays beside him, elbow bent and hand casually relaxed by his head. His shirt is hiked up high, bunching at his collarbones, revealing a long and lean torso, stretched in and on display as he arches his back. Light brown skin made their golden in the lamplight of his dorm, warm and inviting, casting shadows to emphasize the curves and dips of his body, abs slightly defined, nipples dusky and peaked, tip of his belly button leading to a thick trail of hair that disappears beneath his boxers, hip bone sharp and defined. Along his left side is his soul mark, Keith's most recent painting, crawling down from his bunched up shirt to sprawl and wind and curl around his ribs to his chest, down to his hip bone. Purple spirals and curls, lilac vines, swirling like painted water, adding a color that looks beautiful in contrast to his skin. Keith's handiwork, his painting. scrawled out and tattooed across Lance's body, put on display in a way that's far from innocent and has Keith's heart pounding far too painfully. Can't stop staring. Can't stop chasing the swirls of purple with his eyes, how it interacts with the dips and curves and shadows on his body. And he can't stop staring at his body. Because honestly, his face is mostly cut off at the top of the image, letting his bare chest be the centerpiece. But Keith can see he smirk hovering on his lips. Keith's mouth feels dry, and there's a noticeable lump in his throat that's making it very hard to breathe as he edits the image and types a response with shaking fingers.
Wow. Alright, that's a response. Is that like a good wow or bad wow? A good wow. Definitely a good wow. Alright, I can work with that. Just wow. Damn, Keith, you have such a way with words. Know how to make a boy feel special. Shut up. Why don't you make me? I wish I could. Jeez, Lance. You're playing this? Yeah, wasn't sure if you like it though. I like it. A lot. Wanna know how you can show your appreciation?
Keith has a very good idea of what he's getting at and decides to beat him to the punch. Running the towel along his hair one more time, he tosses it over the back of the couch before throwing himself down on his bed. He shuffles around and his front camera open on his phone, trying to get a somewhat decent angle. Lance's picture had looked so effortlessly flawless, but holy, this is hard and awkward as hell. Half propped up on his pillows, and damn near 30 pictures later, he finally manages to get a decent one. He's shirtless, white hair a mess around his shoulders, shadow of a shy smirk at the edge of the frame. He has one thumb hooked into the waistband of his pajama pants and boxers, pushing them down enough to give an inkling of where his own happy trail leads, and a good view of the V that angles down from his hip bones. It's not the greatest picture, and the more he stares at it, the more he sees flaws in it, but he sends it anyway before the doubt can get the better of him.
Like this? And resent? Holy, I think I was gonna say call me, but holy, this is so much better. Jesus Christ. Oh, I can still call you? Hold on, I'm not done staring. Jesus. Keith, who would give you permission to be so hot? I'd be mad if I wasn't tapping that. It's okay. I'll just look at the picture you sent while I wait. Okay, call me. But you don't have to if you don't want to. If you're uncomfortable with this. I mean, it's pretty obvious where I'm going with this. And I get it if you don't wanna. I might be kinda weird. Is it weird? Only if you want to.
He can still see him typing, but he doesn't bother waiting for the flood of messages. He hits the call button, putting the phone to his ear before he loses his nerve. Lance picks up on the first ring. Hey! Sheepishness. Hey. Breathlessness. Not like rush things, but honks in the shower, and I only have a limited amount of time, he babbles out him, quick and rush, and words stumbling over each other in half form. Keith feels a smile tug at his lips as he stares at the ceiling. Did you seriously just open up this conversation with Hunk being in the shower? Oh my god, shut up, he says it with a groan, but it doesn't sound like it's entirely from frustration. Are you? He pauses when he feels his voice starting to crack. He licks his lips, speaking again lowly to compensate. He doesn't know why he feels the need to whisper, like talking too loud might break the moment. Are you touching yourself? There's a soft low chuckle of Vava voice and the airy breathless about it. I just got a picture of you looking hot as and sprawled out on your bed. Of course, I'm touching myself. Keith feels his breath catch in his throat. He doesn't know if it's audible, but then Lance sighs. The sound trailed off into a whine. He can imagine him, back arched, pans of his thighs while he lazily strokes himself. I wish I had gone home with you. If it wasn't so obvious, I would've. Wouldn't give you a birthday present in person. Yeah? He hates how he sounds like the air has been punched from his lungs. And the low, gravely quality of his voice, but Lance doesn't seem to mind. Yeah, wanna know what I would do if I was there with you right now? There's that sly edge, the mischievous undertones mixed with that breathlessness of his voice, in the way a moan seems to rumble beneath his words. And if Keith wasn't weak for it, his hand has made it down his chest without his permission, lazily and lightly dragging his fingertips along his hip bones and stomach before following the trail of hair down. His eyes flutter close, letting himself be lost in darkness. Len's voice as he lets out a shaking breath. Yeah, I will get on my knees for you. I've never done it before, but I want to. For you. Would you? Want to know what you feel like in my mouth? His words are getting quicker now, voice more ragged at the edges. Keith can barely make out a soft rustling and imagines him writhing on his bed, smooth body sliding over the sheets. I want to see your face when I do it. Want to watch you come undone. Want to drive you crazy. Keith's breath shudders out of him. He can feel heat coiling in his gut, build low buzzing beneath his skin. He aches. God, it's taking no time at all, and he's already aching. Lance, are you touching yourself? The question is a low rumble, sending shivers down his spine. No, not yet. Touch yourself, Keith. It's a plea, trailed by a soft whine. Desperate and needy. Please, I want to hear you. His hand pushes beneath his waistband without preamble, unable to deny Lance when he sounds like that. He hisses, his finger curl around sensitive skin, already swelling and getting hard. He sighs shakily as he gives himself several low pumps, relieving some of the ache. That's it. Keith, you sound so good. I don't. He cuts himself off with a groan, half from frustration and half from pleasure. I don't know what to say. It's okay. This is awkward as Then comes the laugh, low and breathless, and somehow managing to wipe away insecurities and reservations that had been knotting up in his chest. But God, Keith, I just want to hear you. I don't care what you say. I just want to hear you. He bites his lip, stifling another groan, this time with frustrated pressure. Its combination he's not even surprised he feels around Lance. Lance, that's it. Please, hold it, Keith. Just say my name like that. He twists his wrist as he pumps himself, thumb rolling over his head and smearing breakup. His body seats for a moment, a gasp making his back arch. Lance, yes, I wish I was there. I want to touch you. I want to kiss you. You're so goddamn kissable. It's not even fair. I'm gonna sleep up for one of these days, cause of. His words are coming quicker now. Slime is sheep slipping away in a wake of desperation and need. I'm not even sorry, Keith says with a chuckle, sound hiccuping as his own strokes pick up speed. I know you're not, you so Jesus, I want to be there to kiss that smug ass smirk off your face. Keith hums. I can think of a better use of your mouth. Keith, you can't just say like that. He chuckles. I thought that was the point of this call. Yeah, but my heart can't take it. I bet you look real good on your knees, Lance. His heart beat hard in his chest, anxiousness crawling tight beneath his ribs. This feels so awkward to say. Does it sound as weird as he feels it does? Can't say for sure, but his hand on his dick and the sound of Lance's breath hitching is enough encouragement to continue. I want to see you with your lips around my cock. Another gasp, air release, and a breathy moan that's just audible enough to send shivers down his spine. You'd take it all from me, wouldn't you, Lance? Yeah, Keith, yes, I take all of it, as much as I can. You can hear the rustling, how quick Lance's breath comes, how rushed and hoarse his voice sounds. You can imagine Lance arriving on the sheets, phone pressed between his ear and his shoulder, one hand holding his pants down while he into the other. You can imagine how his beautiful face was scrunched up, lips parted and swollen and red, wet and inviting. The way his brows would bunch up, eyes squeezed shut as if painted. His own grip on himself tightens, pace speeding up to match the rhythm of the lance in his mind. Hits into his mist. He licks his lips, a smile tugging at the edges, imagining Lance racking himself to the sound of Keith's voice. Good boy. There's a sharp gasp, followed by a low moaning. And then silence. Rustling has stilled, and Keith can hear nothing but the soft, heavy breathing. Only a few seconds pass before there's much louder, much sharper, and far more panic before the call suddenly ends. He has no idea what happened, but there's a pressing matter to attend to. Phone falling off to the side, he squeezed his eyes shut and loses himself in the fantasy. In the echoes of Land's voice, in the way he had said Keith's name, breathless and rumbling, a plea and a demand. He imagines Lance riding on his bed, Keith's stomach tattooed along his ribs, the way the colored skin would shift and stretch over muscles and bone as Lance squirmed in pleasure. He imagines following the trail of those soul marks with his hands, with his mouth, with his tongue, leaving darker marks with teeth and lips. He images Lance riding beneath his hands, fingers tugging at his hair and his shoulders. It doesn't take long before he's spilling out over his hand, a mess shooting out over his stomach in spurts, goes so far as to dot his ribs. He looks down at it and sighs, letting his head drop back to his pillow. He act is fun and all, but he hates the mess. Still, the thought of Lance being made a mess, proof of his own orgasm stewing out over his ribs, and the marks Keith has put there, does something to Keith's insides, something fluttering and warm. He wonders if Lance will feel the same about seeing him. Maybe he should. He rolls his head to the side, where his phone is buzzing, and his screen is lighting up with text.
I am so sorry. I really didn't mean to be a dick and go like that. I heard Hunk unlocking the door and I panicked, so I had to pull my clothes back on and waddle to the bathroom. It was so gross. I think Hunk knows what I did, but he's not gonna say anything. When you live together in the dorm, you learn to expect and respect each other's time. He didn't hear me on the phone though, so thank God. By the way, that was amazing, and your voice is 200% not fair, and I hope you had a good time too. I definitely had a good time. Thanks for my present. Happy birthday, dude. Did you, manage to get off? I kinda had to leave in a hurry, and I'm really sorry, and I couldn't stick around to finish the job. It's fine. I managed. I I gave a man some warning. Jesus Christ. Sorry. No. Just, god damn. Wow. Eloquent. You have such a way with words. Way to make a boy feel special. Shut, Keith. This isn't fair though. It's your birthday, and I got 2 pictures from the spank bank, and you only got one. Guess you just have to make it up to me later. I can definitely do that.
Oh, oh my God! How would I not imagine about this one? I just said it. I said those things in public because this is NSFW. I just said it in public. Oh my God! Way to go, Michael. You just said that fan fiction in public now, and everybody's just disturbing. Hopefully, no one's around here. Hopefully, no one just hear me reading, because this is a reading thing. Okay. It's my fault. It's my responsibility. So whatever you're trying to do, please step away from this. Oh my God, I don't know where this is going to go because I have doubts, man. I have doubts. Let's let's stop now. I can't stand this. Oh my God. Oh my God. What just happened? Okay, you know where that goes. Land Key, they no, they're getting closer and closer, and then they just start. I don't know how to put this one. Phone sex. That's all I'm gonna say. That's it. Okay. I'm just. I said it. There. I said it. Phone sex. There's sexting and phone sex. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. I admit that. Phone sex. That's it. That's it. Mm. Okay. Nothing else I'm gonna say, but that's it. That's it. Oh my God. What the is this story? Sorry, in this section. Well, I messed up then. Whatever. Just go along with it. Just no, no. Lance. Hmm? To Lance. Pidge, come in, Lance. I can't hear you. You're staring. What? He turned sharply, blinking as his brows furrowed. Pidge stands next to him, one hand in their pocket and the other holding their cup. Honestly, he expected them to go back to the table after getting their drink. He hadn't noticed that they had stuck around. That is probably due to the fact that he was staring. Pidge gives him a flat look, slowly arching one eyebrow as they sip their drink. His shoulders rise, hands jamming into his pockets. He tells himself that the slouch in his posture looks casual. I don't know what you're talking about. Lance, please. You were staring at the poor girl with that dopey look on your face. Keep her some privacy, dude. He slumps a little more, and this time it's definitely not casual. He stares at the ground, scuffing the toe of his shoe on the carpet. I wasn't staring. Pidge pats his arm, a pulsating gesture that he knows is the best kind of comfort he'll get while they're in public stare. It's okay. I know you weren't trying to be rude. You're just a lovesick moron. I think I should take offense to that, he says wryly. Pidge shrugs, hand dropping back to the sink into their pocket. Maybe, it's true. You're a hopeless romantic. I know, but just look at her, Pidge. He mutters, eyes circling back to the girl in question. She nestled in one of the comfortable armchairs that filled the large alcove to the left of the counter, knees pulled up onto the chair. She wears a dress that's probably a little too little for the dropping temperatures of fall, but there's a sweater draped over the arm of the chair. Her arms are bare and absolutely covered with scribbled correspondence, scrawling wherever there happens to be space, with no specific organization. Some of them look brighter and fresher, smudged a little. Others look somewhat more muted, faded deep into the skin. He can't read anything on her arms, but he doesn't need to. She's currently hunched over, skirt hiked up far enough to reveal the shorts she wears underneath, scribbling weakly on her knees and upper thigh. He's been watching her long enough to see the pattern. The quick scribbling followed by a brief waiting, where he can practically see her holding her breath, ink appearing on her skin. Then she's off writing again. It's rude to stare. He knows that. It's rude as hell to stare at someone's soul marks, especially while they're actively appearing. It's even more rude when he doesn't even know her. Still, he can't help but be transfixed by her face. The way her eyes light up with excitement, the soft fondness that softens her features, the smile that's barely there, as if she's unaware she's smiling at all. She looks so happy. Lance finishes, unable to articulate the fluttering in his chest. Much more than that. She looks happy, perfectly content and perfectly happy as she revels in her soul connection. Pitch is right. He is a hopeless romantic, but he can't quite help it when he grew up on stuff like this. Fairy tales made real. It's everything he's always expected for himself, and everything he's always wanted. Seeing the happiness on others fills him with a wistful, aching longing, but it also fills him with a weightless contentment that springs from hope. Hope that love and perfect soulmate stories are still around, even if they're not his own. Pidge hums noncommittally, more acknowledgement than anything. Lance? He snaps to attention as the barista calls his name, and he hurries forward to take the 2 cups she offers, muttering the quick things and offering a smile. She steps out of the way as she calls the next person's name and moves over to the side table to get covered sleeps for the 2 drinks. You know, you could just write to them, Paige says, leaning their hip against the counter. He eyes them warily, movements slowing. Paige catches the look in his eyes and sighs. Your soulmate, Lance. You can't just write to them. There's nothing that says you can't. His lips purse, eyes going down to the cups as he presses the lids to them. You don't understand, Pidge. I do, because I've been your friend for years now. Have they ever told you not to write to them? Well, no. And you said things have been getting better lately. Like they actually talked to you a few times. And they've answered a few of your random questions. Well, yeah, but no buts. He glares at them, irritation and hope and frustration colliding in his chest, swirling and biting. It's not that simple, Pidge. I annoyed them into a silence that lasted for years. I'm not gonna do that again, Pidge sighs, pushing out the counter to follow him back to the side. I'm just saying, if they're talking to you now, then things have probably gotten better for them. I can't begin to tell you what their problem is, but the fact that they've been actually responsive has to be a good sign. What if they ignored me? He asked, voice far too soft and far too vulnerable for his liking. Pidge pouches his arm again, voice lowering to something soft to match. Then they don't answer you. Maybe they're busy. Maybe it's overwhelming for them in that moment. Just say something, Lance. You can't sit around waiting forever. He purses his lips, grumbling dull things under his breath as they reach the table. The problem is that he has resigned himself to just waiting. He resigned himself to that years ago. It's hard to break that habit and push boundaries that he's hidden safely behind for so long. He's safe here. His heart and his future with his soulmate are guarded here. Stepping over those boundaries is stepping into the unknown. Still, Pitch does have a point. His soulmate has been more responsive lately. Maybe just one small thing. Why would I even ask? He says as they reach the table. Pitch throws himself into their seat, already pulling out their phone and leaning over the tabletop. Lance slides Keith his drink before sitting in his own seat. Hell, if I know. Pidge, he whines, shoulder drooping as he lifts his chin, tilting his head to give them the best sad eyes he can muster. You can't ignore me to do this, and then not help me. Help you with what? Key takes the cup with a small grateful smile. It's a thing they've been doing lately. One day Key will get their drinks, and the next Lance does it. He evens out in the end. Hitch doesn't understand, but they've stopped questioning it, taking his insistence that it's easier at face value. Truthfully, it would be just as easy for them to get their own coffee, but this way someone is left to wash and clean a table while the other goes for drinks. And maybe, just maybe, Lance feels a little thrill whenever he sees Keith's grateful little smile and their fingers brush along the coffee cup, or the little flip in his stomach whenever Keith manages to get his complicated orders right. Yeah, okay, he has problems. The main one being all the weird things Keith does, but no one's perfect. And the gratification he feels in the moment is enough to keep him from thinking too hard about how gone he is for this boy. Problems for future Lance. Good luck, buddy. He leans forward, resting an elbow on the table and resting his chin in his palm, fingers of his other hand playing with the lid of his cup. As Keith lifts his own cup to his lips, Lance kicks him lightly under the table. Give it a second, mullet man. You're gonna burn yourself again. Keith gives him a small pout of a scowl, but lowers his cup anyway. I'm trying to convince Lance to write his soulmate, Pitch says, answering Keith's question. They don't look up from where they're slumped over the table, scrolling through their phone. Oh? Keith says, it's a little too blank for Lance's liking. Blank and carefully constructed as his face falls into a perfectly neutral expression. Lance's insides twist around the sour pit of anxiety as Keith raises one brow. He was staring at this girl writing to her soulmate over there with this dopey look on his face. I told him to just write to them. What's the worst that can happen? They don't reply. Lance shoots them a little glare that they don't bother to look up at. Well, yeah, Pidge shrugs, sipping the drink. Never know until you try. Which brings us back to my previous question. What do I even say? Another shrug, more lazy than the first. Pidge, put your kid genius brain to work and help me. They huff, and while they try to project irritation, Lance knows them better than that. They look up from their phone, eyes darting around the campus coffee shop. Ask them what kind of coffee they like. Something simple and easy. He blinks, straightening a little. That's not a bad idea. Pidge flashes them a little grin. I know. I'm a genius. And so very modest, he says dryly as he bends over to reach into his bag, digging around for a pen. By the time he straightens, Keith has already lost interest in their conversation. He's hunkered down in his seat, hoodie swallowing his arms all the way to his fingers. He has his textbook open and on his laptop, propped up on the edge of the table, ignoring them in favor of reading. Lance feels a moment of guilt, a twist in his gut that lands a sharp pain to his heart. But Key doesn't look mad, just carefully blank, indifferent, uninterested. That should probably be for the better, but it doesn't ease the queasy feeling taking root in Lance's gut. Still, Keith did say that he doesn't expect Lance to change just because they're more involved now, and he's never reacted badly to Lance's summer opinions, so maybe he's just imagining things. He puts the pen to his inner forearm, tip hovering just over his skin as he hesitates. Do it quick, before he can overthink it. Like a band-aid. Rip it and go. He writes quickly, practically slamming the pen into the tabletop when he's done. Hey, Space Cadet, what kind of coffee do you like? Or are you a tea person? Time ticks by slowly. He has homework, and he should be doing. And he's got everything strewn out across the table just waiting for him to start. But none of the words on the pages make any sense. He can't focus on them for his brain won't cooperate. All he can think about are the words on his arm and how they seem to burn against his flesh. Not a literal burn, but a burn of awareness. The memory of how the pen felt pressing into his skin is at the forefront of his mind. He feels like he's floating in limbo where it's hard to breathe and hard to sit still, limbs feeling light and airy but weighed down with a precarious nervousness that threatens to drag him to the ground. Feels like he's caught, suspended, and just waiting, waiting and over attentive for any sigh of his soul connection opening up and for the telltale prickles against his skin. He's aware, far, far too aware. It leads him to fidgeting. His leg bounces, pen tapping restlessly against the blank page on his notebook. He rests his chin in his hand, fingers absently picking at his face. And God, he's gonna regret that later. But right now, he can't stop. He drinks his coffee way too fast, lifting the cup simply giving him something to do with his hands. It's not even good. They got the proportions wrong again. He should honestly start ordering something else here, because no one makes it right save for himself, Alora and Coran. He ends up excusing himself to the bathroom and taking a moment to just splash water on his face. He takes a moment to simply stare down at the writing on his arm. And can't help but feel like he's made a mistake. He also knows logically that only about 40 minutes have passed. His soulmate could be busy and unable to reply. They might be waiting until later to reply. They may not reply at all, and that's fine. Totally fine. They have no obligation to him. It's just being a burden, bothering them when they don't want in hopes of what? A one-word answer about coffee? An incredulous laugh bubbles up his throat. Sounding just a hair too hysterical as anxiety and doubt and worry churn his gut. It squeezes his heart, pulsing out through his veins, making him feel lightheaded and queasy. Heaped up, he finally reaches out to his soulmate again. And it's about coffee. He's an idiot. He shouldn't listen to Pidge. He needs to erase it. Get rid of it. He's out the door, nearly tripping over someone in the process of scrambling out into the hallway, shouting an apology over his shoulder. He hurries through the wide halls of the student union, weaving through the flood of students until he can dip into the coffee shop. Where's Pidge? He asks when he reaches their table, finding no sign of the little gremlin of their belongings. Keith just shrugs, not even bothering to look up from his textbook. They said they had to go get something from their room before their next class, so they left early. Oh, cool, he says, absently dropping into his seat and reaching for his pen. He has it pressed into his skin, his question mostly obscured with quick and fast scribbled lines, blackening out the words. When Keith is suddenly there, he lunges across the table, slapping his sleeve-covered hand over his arm and blocking him from continuing to scratch out the message. Lance has the fleeting thought that his sweater paws are cute before his face crunches up with a scowl, irritation tugging in his chest as he lifts his head to glare at Keith. What are you doing? Incredulous. A hiss that's far too loud, almost a hint of anger, matching Lance's scowl with one of his own. It makes Lance bristle, shoulders squaring defensively. Nothing. It's none of your business, Keith. He tries to tug his arm out of Keith's grip, but his fingers curl tighter, nails biting into his arm, hard enough to make him wince. You're trying to erase your soul mark. It's definitely a statement, but it's said almost like a question. Lance can't really deny it. Keith isn't letting his arm go. Looks down at the table, glaring at the black scribbles peeking out from beneath Keith's hand. I just don't want to bother them, but you want to talk to them. He says it like he doesn't understand, and he doesn't. He doesn't understand. He doesn't get it. Lance's brows furrow, and he finally manages to rip his arm away from Keith's grasp. It doesn't matter what I want, he mutters, the bitter taste of bile on the back of his tongue as he pulls on his hoodie, pushing the sleeves down to hide the mangled mess his attempt at communication has become. He crosses his arms over his chest, slouching down his He glares at him for he's still leaning over the table, hands curled into fists. It does matter what you want. No, it really doesn't. So just drop it. Lance, this is your sole connection to Keith. He snaps, farther and far sharper than he had intended, but it makes mouth snap shut, jaw clenching tight. You can see the muscles switching at his temples, eyes narrow in an anger that Lance really doesn't want to deal with burning in his eyes. He sighs, dropping his eyes to the table and letting himself slip further down in his chair. Just drop it, okay? Fine. It doesn't sound fine, but he backs up anyway, pulling off the table and sinking back into the bubble of his own space. His eyes are back on his textbook, but his brows are still pinched and his jaw moves like he's grinding his teeth. Great. Now Keith's mad at him. He just can't do anything right, can he? He sighs, a long exhale through his nose, picking up his pen again and letting his arm rest on the table, hovering over his notebook. He wiggles the pen back and forth in the air, but refrains from tapping the paper. No need to make himself any more of a nuisance. 10 minutes of silence. He knows he's watching the clock on the wall intensely, praying for that second hand to tick faster, so at least they can have the excuse of going to class to pull them out of this funk. He likes silences with Keith. Keith has taught him how to appreciate. Usually silences with Keith are peaceful and grounding, because when he's with Keith, he doesn't feel like he needs to fill that silence. That they can contently occupy the same space without words. This, however, is different. This is tense and bitter. This has each tick of the second hand crawling beneath his skin and his stomach rolling. He can't stop sneaking glances at Keith, wilting a little more when he sees the tension in his shoulders and the grinding of his jaw. He doesn't like this, not one bit, but he doesn't know how to break it. Fortunately, Keith does it for him. Unfortunately, it's not how he expects. Do you love them? He looks up, blinking blankly in his confusion. Keith just stares at him, jaw set and brows pinched. There's a steelness in his eyes, but his voice is carefully neutral and hard to read. When Lance raises an eyebrow, Keith sighs, eyes dropping back down to the book in his lap. Lance knows he's not actually reading it. Your soulmate. Do you love them? Question is absurd as it is surprising. Of course I do. Why? It's pointed, direct, sharp and curious, cutting right into the meat of him without mercy. He feels himself bristle, back straightening and shoulders squaring just slightly. He lifts his chin, defiance and defensiveness blazing in his chest. They're my soulmate, Keith, he says dryly. He looks up then, but barely lifts his head, gazing out at Lance through his lashes, hair a mess as it swoops over his forehead. His gaze is no less intense for it. In fact, it feels like a cut straight through his ribs, leaving his heart bare as he picks away at it. But you don't know them. Lance crosses his arms over his chest, as if that might help the gaping wound close. So, he lifts his chin a little higher, eyes narrowing just a fraction, looking Lance over like a puzzle he's trying to figure out. They don't talk to you. So, he repeats, sharper. Keith frowns, the furrow on his brows making him look more confused than angry, but there's definitely something else there. Perhaps not anger, but something close. Something Lance is having a hard time reading. How can you love someone you don't know? Lance shrugs, offhanded and indifferent. He's trying to come up with what to say back because it's obvious, isn't it? He loves them because they're his soulmate. Why wouldn't he love them? But Keith isn't taking that for an answer. and Lance is having trouble articulating how he feels because it should be obvious. But Keith is so dense. Keith sighs. There's an exasperation in there that Lance doesn't like. Not one bit. Keith doesn't get to judge him from loving his soulmate. None that matters anyway, he says. Keith looks up sharply, giving an incredulous look. I'll get to know them later, after we meet. Just because I don't know them yet doesn't mean I can't love them. Keith watches him for a moment, gaze searching his face. He steels himself against the scrutiny, refusing to look away. If he hadn't become so apt at reading the subtleties in Keith's expression, he might have missed it. The way the lines around his lips deepen even as the furrow to his brows softens. The tension around his eyes eases, and for a brief moment, looks he just looks tired. What if you don't like them? Lance snorts, a smile creeping at the edges of his lips, as he says with absolute certainty, I will. They're my soulmate. The Keith sighs, long and deep. The exasperation is back, but it's edged with exhaustion. The lines still cut deep around his lips, forming tension around his eyes as he looks down. He busies himself with putting his books away, slipping them into his backpack. You're impossible, he mutters under his breath, but Lance can hear him loud and clear. He helps softly, lifting his chin as he packs up his own things. Some of us like to be optimistic instead of making ourselves miserable, edgelord. Keith stands, swinging the strap of his backpack over his shoulder. He still looks frustrated, but the sharpness and whatever had been fueling his anger before has vanished. I'm just being realistic, Lance snorts, standing up and slipping his arms through the straps of his backpack. Sounds to me like you're jealous. He regrets it as soon as he says it, feels the cold, numbing chill of eyes in his veins as the words leave his mouth, feels the way his ribs squeeze the air from his lungs, and the way his stomach twists into a tight knot. He didn't mean it. Not like that. Keith is special to him, too. Way, way too special for his own good, but it doesn't matter. He looks up sharply to see the look of bewildered surprise on Keith's face, for it morphs quickly to hurt, and that's just like a knife to his gut, twisting and tearing. Then, just as quickly as it had come, it's locked away. Indifference and anger, a mass that closes Lance out in a way that leaves him reeling. "Q, Lance!" he mutters, snatching his coffee cup off the table before turning on his heel and storming out of the coffee shop. Lance watches him go, wishing for all the world that a hole would open up in the earth and swallow him whole. Or perhaps a bolt of lightning would come down and smite him where he stands. Or he could just turn into stone and shatter into dust on the carpet. None of those things happen, though, and in the end, he has no choice but to drag his feet and charge after Keith with his shoulders hunched and a weight on his chest as they walk to their public speaking class. It is tough that Lance has to find his soulmate one day and still doesn't know who their soulmate is. And they couldn't explain it because that's just now getting into the situation about to talk about the soulmates and never. Keith is avoiding that subject, and you know what? He's mad. He's angry. He's pissed, and it just walked away, and they're both to their public speaking class and just without talking. They might have to just write it down because Lance doesn't know how to treat his soulmate correctly, and he's got to learn, and he has to learn how to speak, how to talk to someone, how to write something, or just say something to a soulmate. What could be wrong with it? And it turns out that there could be a problem about this soulmate talk. Saying class is awkward is a huge understatement, but he's not really sure what else to call it. It's the worst kind of tension, the kind that leaves him restless and agitated, caught between feeling like he can't breathe and like he might throw up. More than once his heart rate gets a little too loud and a little too painful. His foot bounces incessantly, and his nails are torn and his lip is well on its way. He was tapping his pencil, but he earned a few pointed looks from classmates. He and Keith are still in their usual seats at the back of the room, but unlike usual, where they be kicking each other under the table and writing notes and whispering commentary, they're silent, uncomfortably so. Keith sits rigid next to him, body tense and jaw set. A few times Lance manages to sneak a glance, and you can see the furrow to his brows and the frown on his lips. He stares at the whole straight through their professor, but Lance knows it's a very pointed way of staring, pointedly not looking at him. Keith almost pays too much attention in class, just to spite him. This is the worst kind of tension because Lance knows it's all his fault. Mostly his fault. Sort of his fault? Okay, Keith's to blame too, but Lance didn't exactly make it better. They're both at fault, but that doesn't stop the doubt and the regret and the overanalyzing from swirling and spiraling. If only he hadn't written to a soulmate. If only he hadn't tried to scribble it out. If only Keith hadn't pushed. If only he hadn't snapped back. If only he hadn't gotten defensive. If only he hadn't said that. He knows that Keith is weird about soulmates. He knows their views on it differ. He wishes he had just let the topic go before they butted heads. He wishes he could just rewind, do over, erase. The worst part is, he doesn't know what Keith is thinking. He doesn't know enough about Keith and his soulmate situation to begin to guess. All he knows is Keith doesn't like talking about it. He doesn't know why Keith was so pushy, why he argued, why he can't understand that Lance loves his soulmate. It hurts. It hurts because as much as he knows Keith, as much as he prides himself on being able to read Keith, he's learned that there are some part of him, some very important parts that Lance just doesn't know. And he doesn't want this up. Not the whole physical relationship thing they've got going on, but their friendship. Keith is important to him, and he doesn't want to lose that piece of his life because the two of them couldn't see eye to eye. He doesn't want this to get in the way of them, doesn't want it to drive a wedge between them. So when class ends and Keith picks up his bag, darting quickly out of the class and hurrying down the hall, Lance charges after him, not to yell at him, not to demand answers, but to swallow his pride and apologize. He doesn't know what happened, but it's clear that there are things he doesn't understand about Keith, and there are things Keith doesn't understand about him. With their tempers, it's a volatile combination. He doesn't want to leave this as it is. His anxiety won't let him, so do what he can. And what he can do is apologize, not for the whole thing, but for his own part in it. Maybe if he Maybe if he can make Keith understand Lance, Keith will help Lance understand him. He catches up to Keith right before he reaches the stairwell. He reaches out, catching Keith's wrist and distantly reveling in how small it feels beneath the swollen material of his hoodie sleeve. Keith, just hold up a second. Keith stops the moment Lance grabs him, turning to look at him sidelong. His lips are pursed, but they're just shy of a real frown. He goes for a glare, but it's half-hearted. There is a hurt and guilt in his eyes that makes Lance's stomach twist. With a gentle tug at his wrist, he pulls Keith out of the main flow of students going to and from class. Keith moves with him easily, and Lance pulls them over into a far corner, sitting them on the bench. As soon as they're sitting, he pulls his hand away. He leans forward, resting his elbows on his thighs and clasping his hands tight, weaving his fingers and idly attempting to crack his knuckles as he fidgets. He breathes in deep, straightening a little with it and closing his eyes briefly. He can feel Keith watching him, can feel the heat of his gaze. He breathes out. I'm sorry. He opens his eyes, shoulders sagging as he turns to look at Keith, catching his gaze and holds it, intense and unyielding. He wants... No. He needs Keith to see how genuine he is, how much this hurts to be this vulnerable. Keith doesn't look away. looks surprised, a little conflicted, but doesn't look away. So many things are. Lance lets out a shaking breath, keeping his voice low and soft enough that their conversation is private under a little corner. A bubble beside the flow of students, a swirling pool separated from the rest. Complicated, crazy complicated, and it's honestly a bit of a sore spot for both of us. I don't like. He closes his eyes. Key's gaze just a hair too intense, and he's feeling just a hair too vulnerable. This isn't something he used to saying out loud. Hell, it's barely something he likes to admit himself. I don't like the idea that I'm gonna get up with my soulmate, or that we won't get along, or that, I don't know, things will go bad somehow. He sighs heavily, letting frustration and exasperation tug at his vocal cords as he drops his head into his hands. His fingers tug at his hair, sharp and dull pain grinding him, nails digging into his scalp. Then Key's hand is on his shoulder, warm and firm and comforting. It slides across to his back, rubbing slow and soothing circles along his spine. He sighs again, but this time it's more in relief. My family all have amazing soulmates and amazing stories. His voice is muffled by his hands, low and soft. You can feel Keith lean closer to hear him better. And the longer mine goes without talking to me, the longer I go without meeting them. I've just, I've always assumed I would have a story like my parents, you know, and it hurts to realize I probably won't. He stares at the floor from between his fingers. The warm linoleum is scuffed with the dirt with shoe prints, tarnished from years of wear and tear and hundreds of thousands of students. He focuses on the patterns and dried stains make on the once pristine tiles. He loses himself in the dirt and grim, letting the swirls and lines dragging away as the words slip from his lips. If my soulmate doesn't even like me, what good am I? The hand on his back stills. The sound of footsteps and many voices and fractions and of conversation are loud, but not nearly as loud as his own heartbeat. He couldn't hear Keith's breath to begin with, and now he gets the distinct impression that he's holding it. Dangerous territory. He feels like he's drowning. Time to abort, reverse, rewind, regroup, drag himself back out before the depths swallow him whole. He breathes in and deep and lets out a shaky breath, lifting his head and sitting up straight. He slaps his hands down on his knees. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I'm sorry. I know you're different about soulmates than I am, and I didn't mean to argue with you about it. And I definitely didn't mean the whole jealous thing. So, I'm sorry. He's not sure what he's expecting, but it's definitely not Keith's head to land on his shoulder. Not the side that he can hear as well as feel against his side. Not the soft hair that tickles his collarbones. Not the hand that slips down his back to rest at the curve of his waist. I'm sorry too. Neither of them speak for several long moments. Lance can see the passage of time in the way the flood of students thins to a trickle, nearly stopping as they slip into classrooms down the hall. Still, he doesn't move. He doesn't really want to move. He's comfortable like this, with Keith pressed to his side, and Keith doesn't seem in a hurry to move either. The tension that had been tight and suffocating dissipates slowly, leaking away and leaving his bones feeling like jelly with relief. When he finally feels Keith shift, he feels a distinct ripple of disappointment that he has too quickly snuffed out. Keith sits up beside him, hand moving from his waist to the center of his back, but not quite pulling away. Lance looks over at him, finding Keith staring hard at the floor. His brows are furrowed, lips pursed to a small frown. It's clear he wants to say something, but is having trouble finding the words. It's fine. Lance will wait, and he'll idly muse at the cute curve of Keith's nose as he does so. If you... He starts, but trails off, no sprinkling. Lance leans over, silently bumping his shoulder against Keith's. Keith says, if you meet your soulmate right now, what would you? Lance says his brows immediately pinching. He opens his mouth to respond, but closes it quickly after. What? What would he do? If his first meeting was right now, he would... Oh God, what would he do? Have a heart attack probably. Then be revived and have another one all over again. He manages it a million different ways in the span of a couple seconds. A million different first meetings with a faceless, nameless person. A million different outcomes. He'll shoot himself in the foot before he admits that a couple of those fantasies are wishful musings of Keith that quickly stamp out. Would you give up everything for them? To meet them right now? So Keith then. When Keith is still staring at the floor, the hand on his back has gone stiff, and his other hand is curled into a fist on his thigh. You can see the tension Keith felt. Drop out of school? Fly across the country? To another country? Leave everyone you know behind just to meet them? To be with them? Lance has an answer. He knows what his answer is without having to think about it. And he knows that it's not the answer Keith wants to hear. His silence, however, is answer enough. Keith sighs again, pushing himself to his feet, hand dragging along Lance's back before disappearing. Lance looks up at him, bottom lip caught between his teeth. Keith looks defeated. There's a slump in his shoulders and shadows behind his eyes. Before Lance can get too far on the "I up again" train, though, Keith turns to him, holding out his hand. Lance stares at it for a moment, completely baffled. Come on, I want to take you somewhere. There's no excitement or lightness in his voice, just dull, monotoned defeat, but a firm determination and steely resolve. Lance's curiosity is piqued, but even if it wasn't, he knows he would follow Keith anywhere. It's a scared truth that he doesn't like to admit to himself. He takes Keith's hand and lets him pull him to his feet. Lets Keith hold his hand as he leads him to the stairwell, down the steps, and out into the fresh air. Lets Keith guide him back towards his apartment and to his bike parked out front. Stays silent the whole time, because it looks like Keith is lost in his own thoughts. And if letting him think it through, it means learning a little more about Keith, well, it's more the awkward silence. And when he sees that familiar flicker of doubt in Keith's eyes, it takes all it takes is a gentle squeeze of his hand, turned back into steely resolve. This is going to be the greatest thing. It's not the greatest thing. It could be this oddest thing ever. And understand the fact that it's possible that apologizing and just saying something to the other soulmate, because your soulmate might have a doubt, but you could change the way you want to have someone's soulmate and just try to tell Lance, keep telling Lance to, wait, what would you do if you have a soulmate right in front of you, or could be anywhere? Because that soulmate might be waiting for you to meet, of your first meeting, of your first connection. And it's all up into one sense. Because Sharon and Laura did it, their first meeting, their first connection. And Shane and Hunk did it too. Their first meeting, their first connection. They both did it. And now Lance has to find his soulmate to make a one connection. I mean, take the first connection and first meeting happened. To make those things happen. But we already knew about it. It's key. It's right in front of you. But what's he going to do about it? It's going to tell something that he admitted that he's your soulmate. He's right in front of you. What would he tell Keith about this? There's so many questions to ask. Okay, let's just keep going. Alright, let's keep going. Keith has taken him for a ride several times, and it never seems to lose its thrill. Lance loves the feeling of it, of having the powerful machine between his thighs, of being pressed tight into Keith's back, arms around his waist, leaning to him, of the wind tugging at his clothes, reminding him just how fast they're going, of feeling the world tilt as they lean into turns, of seeing the world fly past with dizzying speed. It's freeing, exhilarating. The air is cold, but Keith is warm. There is no need for conversation. At the heart of the adrenaline is a tranquil peace, a freedom that's hard to find anywhere else. Keith takes him out to the parkway. It isn't the first time, and it probably won't be the last. They can't go as fast on the winding roads, but it's beautiful. Anyway, away from people and the town, breathtaking and wild. It feels like they could go forever, leaving everything behind, and maybe enter a reality where nothing like soulmates matter. Instead of taking him to an overlook, Keith takes him to a hiking trail, but when Lance gives him a raised eyebrow in question, Keith just offers a tiny smile and heads toward the trail. And really, what can Lance do besides follow? The trail isn't so bad. He doesn't need hiking boots for it, and he's fine in his jeans. It curves ever upwards, zigzagging at a steady incline. Rocks make stone steps at several points, roots and dirt at other spots. They pass a few people headed down, but very few headed up. Turns out the middle of the day on a weekday isn't a popular hiking day. Key doesn't talk as he leads the way up the mountain trail. Lance doesn't push him. They pass a few giant boulders that hang out over the mountainside, giving perfect places to climb onto a rest. And had this been any other time, he would insist on doing just that. But Keith isn't stopping, and Lance doesn't want to interrupt whatever is going on inside his head. So they walk. They climb upwards. Lance keeps an eye on his feet so it doesn't trip. Up, up, right, left, right. The path curves and zigzags, then it rounds out, curving in a wide arc to the top. At the top of the trail, they find themselves atop a rolling mountain top. Keith leads them straight for the head of the trail, where an incredibly large rock juts out over a cliffside. He doesn't hesitate before climbing up it. Perching himself at the top, Lance watches him go, and when he settles, he finally looks down at Lance with a small smile. He passes the rock next to him, and Lance sighs, scrambling up after him. There they sit, side by side, silent as they take in the view. It's incredible. Rolling mountains and hills, forest an array of colors as fall changes the leaves. A warm spattering of colors decorating the rolling wilderness. The parkway cuts through it below, weaving along the mountainsides. They can see far out into the distance, rolling forever onward. Up here, the wind is sharp and cold, tugging at them harshly and cutting through their jackets. He leans into Keith's side and feels the warm pressure as he leans back. This is my favorite spot on the parkway, he offers into the silence. The first thing said since they left. Lance hums. It's beautiful. My parents were soulmates. Lance looks at him then, eyes sharp and brow furrowed, the keyscape still out on the horizon, while there is a hesitancy in his voice and shadows in his eyes. His expression is relaxed and strangely at ease. There is a sad acceptance to it that makes Lance's chest ache. He's silent, as if waiting for something. So Lance offers something gentle and neutral. I didn't know that. He shrugs. I don't talk about it. It's not a happy story. He hesitates again. Lance fills the space. I thought you said your mom and she was dead. Small sad smile. We like to say they were soulmates. They were happy, but that's another story. My dad, he was mom's first soulmate. Lance hums encouragingly, leaned over to put his head on Keith's shoulder, and Kim felt the shuddering exhale. They shared who they were really young. As soon as my mom turned 18, she left everything behind, gave up everything to move to Texas with nothing but a suitcase full of clothes. She told me they were happy for a while, when it was still new, but they rushed things. They went into it too fast, didn't bother to learn about each other or about themselves. When they whole were soulmates, excitement wore off. They weren't happy anymore. His voice is barely a whisper, barely audible over the roar of the wind rushing up the mountain. Lance finds his own breathing to be shallow and his heartbeat loud. Still, he can feel Keith's voice rumble in his chest, feels it vibrate into his side and to the heart of him. And he's staring to see where this is going. They felt having a kid would make things better. So, they had me. Mom never said so, but I think it made things worse. She was lonely and miserable and never really got a chance to be herself or figure herself out. And suddenly, she had a soulmate and a son and a lot of responsibility. I never got to hear his side of things, but I think my dad wasn't much better. He sees movement out of the corner of his eyes, and spots Keith picking at the skin around his nails. Without thinking, Lance reaches out and snatches up one of Keith's hands, weaves their fingers together, squeezes it gentle just to feel Keith squeeze back. He runs his thumb over Keith's knuckles as he continues. What had started with hesitancy is now a flood, a rush of words and confessions that have started to crack the dam and now can't be held back. When I was 2, they admitted it wasn't working anymore. She told me she was far too miserable to stay there. She moved back home to my grandparents' place with me. My dad died 2 years later, and I still have memories of her feeling the last connection. Oh, Keith. He shakes his head. And Lance pretends not to notice the glassy quality of his eyes. She said, my dad wasn't a bad person. She made sure to let me know that he was a good guy, and I should be proud to have him as my dad, but they just rush into things. They f***ed up, and they were miserable because of it. Just just because your soulmate doesn't mean you're guaranteed to be happy. He sounds choked up, voice thick as he cuts himself off. Lance humps, squeezing his hand. He's not sure he can speak around the lump in his own throat. His stomach is twisting and rolling. His own heartbeat is bruising, chest tightening and with emotions that are hard to place. Sympathy, empathy, understanding. Understanding that strikes right into the heart of Keith. An understanding that makes so many pieces of the puzzle click seamlessly into place, forming a picture that's far deeper and far sadder than Lance has been anticipating. This is something really heavy to have been holding on his shoulder for so long. He grew up worrying about his soulmate, worrying and fearing, and the exact opposite of Lance. And with understanding comes a shade of guilt, because he now understands why his own outlook might make Keith uncomfortable. Keith isn't just telling Lance a story about his parents. He's opening himself up. He's ripping his chest open and exposing the hidden parts of himself in a moment of extreme vulnerability, pulling out the pieces for Lance to see, to put together, to draw conclusions from without having to do so pointedly. He's offering a vulnerable and private part of himself to Lance in an attempt to caution him gently. And Lance, God, he doesn't know how to feel about that. Doesn't think he can sort through the twisting chaos that's storming inside him right now. He clears his throat, shifting as he finds his voice. I just don't want you to lose yourself and who you are because of someone you never met. I don't want you to throw your life away for an idea of someone. And that nauseating feeling, jagged and sharp, is one that Lance is all too familiar with. The guilt of truth. Because as much as he wants to deny it, as much as he wants to puff out his chest and declare that he'd always be himself, no matter what, the truth is far, far uglier and a far harder pill to swallow. He knows, deep down, in the shadows of himself where the truths lie that he doesn't like to face, that if given the opportunity, he would be just like Keith's mom. He heaves a heavy breath, feels it shudder out of his lungs in a shaky exhale, and curls more into Keith's side, nuzzles deeper into his shoulder, and feels a warmth of relief as Keith's arm slips around his back. Thanks, Keith, he says, and he means it. Feels it like a sigh of relief that is somehow centering in the eye of the storm inside him. He breathes it into the roar of the wind, as the sun begins to set and paints the sky in the same warm hues as trees below. Keith just hums, arms around him, tightening just a fraction as his cheek falls to rest atop Lance's head. He had wanted understanding. He just hadn't realized just how sobering understanding could be. Alright, Keith's story about his parents and opening up to tell this the whole truth and why he doesn't want to talk about the soulmate. And it's really sad, and I know that because they're not and they have the connection, but they kind of rush into things and they messed up. And there's no way they could put themselves. There's a point of no return that they could be together, and that was their last connection. And Keith's dad died years after his mom moved into grandparents' house. And that's hurt. That's really hurts. For Kia's story, it really hurts. This is not a real thing, but it would have been. But I kind of see where this soulmate goes, and yeah, Lance understood everything that Lance understood everything what Keats had told in the story, his story, and I'm just feeling more emotional about that. It's kind of sad. If you have someone, if your parents, one of your parents had died, I'm so sorry. This kind of relates it to the story that where it should be, but it's so hard for yourself to just put in this story. And I just wanted to read this for you guys to just open up. So open up to whatever you are, because if you have parents, family is important first, and your parents are your top priority. Parents are your top priorities, and it's very important to have this moment because, you know, someone's gonna love you. Lance, hold still. I am holding still. No, you're not. I am too. He wagged his eyebrows for good measure, lips curled into a small smirk. Keith pulls the brush away from his face, giving him a flat stare. His scowl, however, is ruined by the quirk at the corner of his lips, and the way his cheeks rise just a fraction. If you don't stay still, I'm passing you over to Corinne. No can do. Corinne calls from across the room where he's hovering over Allura. She's sitting nice and still in a chair, like she should, patiently letting Corinne apply the layers upon layers of zombie makeup. We battled righteously in rock, paper, scissors for it, and you lost. It is your duty to prepare Lance's makeup. Why you guys act like it's a punishment to do my makeup? He grumbles, a pout forming on his lips. Because you squirm too much, he says simply, rubbing the brush back into the pad. I can't help it. I know. Keith lightly taps the back of the brush handle against Lance's bottom lip, playful and light as his smile starts to break through, small and secret. Just try, okay? I'm almost done. What about the blood? We'll do that when everyone's face paint is done. Lance humps, putting his legs up onto his seat and crossing them, hands in his lap as he closes his eyes, lean forward. Make me pretty, Keith. I thought the point of this was to make you ugly. Zombies can be pretty too. Don't discriminate. The process of getting them all ready for the zombie march takes a couple hours. Allura helps by applying a thin coating of base sealer to everyone's face and neck. The thin clear coating is supposed to keep anything from having direct contact with the skin, and was developed to keep makeup from transferring from soulmate to soulmate. They don't have that much of a problem with that. Seeing as Corinne and Key are doing everyone's makeup, and none of them are doing it for themselves. Still, the most important reason for the base sealer is the easy cleanup afterwards. All the caked on layers of cheap Halloween paint would peel right off, and Lance won't have to worry about his pores being clogged for weeks. He sits as still as he can as Keith applies the base layers of cheap paint to make him look dead. It doesn't help that for one. Sitting still is difficult, and for two, he feels like squirming under the intensity of Keith's gaze. His skin buzzes whenever Keith's hands brush against him. His heartbeat gets far too erratic whenever their knees bump together, his breath catching in his throat whenever Keith brushes hair gently away from his forehead. God damn it! He's got it bad. Really bad. Ever since the talk he had with Keith about soulmates, things have only gotten worse. He's seen Keith at his most vulnerable. It feels like he knows Keith now. Knows him in a way that takes those carefully, crafted walls that have been between them and smashes them to bits. Now he not only likes Keith, he gets along with Keith, finds the guy incredibly attractive, but he also understands Keith on a level that's far too personal and far too intimate in a way that so few know him. It's an extremely dangerous combination, and Lance can feel himself teetering on the edge of the line, and he told himself one cross, one that he can't cross, one that's so tempting nonetheless. Big nope, big no-no. Bad Lance. Told him consider it. Turn around. Do not pass go. Do not collect 200. But then Keith says he somewhat accents it, and pressing the brush tip to Lance's nose in a light little touch. and he opens his eyes to find Keith gazing at him with his amused, fond gentleness. In his eyes that makes Lance's insides go all mushy, and god damn, it's hard not to cross that line. And he only hopes it's not as obvious as it feels. He's forced out of his seat by Pidge, who sits down and adjusts the fake beard as best they can. It swallows half their face, falling well past their waists. As he starts to walk away, Keith grabs his wrist, yanking him hard until he's bent at the waist and at eye level. Close, way too close. Keith smiles, reaching out to dab a little on his cheek with the brush. Miss the spot, Keith says softly. Lens fits way too much on the feeling of his breath against his lips. His lips are covered in nasty zombie paint. He should not feel it that intimately. Thanks, Lance manages, and judging from the smirk on Keith's lips, it was a little too breathless. Thankfully, no one else seems to notice. He usually chats with his friends as they take turns getting painted. While Coran and Keith work, Lance helps the others with their costumes, smattering paint on their clothes, ripping them, adding streaks of the flake blood in all the right places. In the end, they look pretty damn good. Keith and Coran are surprisingly good at base paint, and Lance's eyes for detail in the costumes make the perfect final touch. When they're all done, he makes them line up and he takes a step back, hands on his hips as he looks them over one last time. Fitch, small as they are, makes a great zombie Dumbledore, complete with a tangled bloody beard, a dropping pointed hat, ripped wizard robes, and a broken hat moon spectacles. He wasn't sure how Honk's werewolf zombie would turn out, but him and Key managed to make it look pretty cool. Messy hair, fake yin chops, fake ears, one of which they tore a big chunk out of. True to his word, Key made him look like an undead wolf. Allure zombie theme is a little more subtle, with a suit found at a local thrift store, torn and bloodied and tattered, hair piled into a messy and falling bun, one shoe with a broken heel. She makes a dashing corporate zombie, office worker turned undead. Koran is far simpler, classic, as he likes to call it. Nothing makes the classics. Dressed in simple clothes found at a thrift store, zombie makeup impeccable. He chose to go all without the make wounds and liquid latex. Between himself and Keith, they did an amazing job. Shiro's is arguably the best. Like Koran, he went with something more classic. Cheap clothes, bought to tear and bloody. Classic zombie makeup, messy hair. The piece de resistance, however, was the fact that he had decided to leave his prosthetic arm behind. The sleeve hanging over his thumb was ripped to shreds and bloodied. And now, Keith. Okay, so he said that zombies could be pretty, but he hadn't been joking. He lives in the modern age. He's played plenty of zombie games and watched plenty of zombie movies. He knows zombies aren't supposed to be pretty. What with their undead status and rotten bodies and blood everywhere. So really, Keith has no damn business being adorable as he is. He bought teeth, the kind you can mold to fit your mouth and fit like the caps over your canine teeth. He bought them to try for a vampire zombie, but Pidge had nixed that idea pretty hard. Something about crossing undead streams or whatever. Point is, Keith is stubborn. Keith had wanted to wear his little teeth, so Keith came out with another idea. A cat. An honest to God undead zombie cat. Wearing all black, complete with messy hair that Laura had fun teasing with hairspray. A little black nose and whiskers mixed into his zombie makeup. Heavy dark bags under his eyes. Smears of blood and scratches down his neck and jaw. A little dribble of blood down from the corner of his lip. Black cat ears are clipped to his hair atop his head amongst his messy hair. The ears are teeth. Really shouldn't be as cute as they are. Nance goes through everyone. Tugging here at cautions here, adjusting here. He spends a little extra time with Key, just to play with those ears and see Key's pout. Once he's had enough, he swats at Lance's hand and Lance grins. Get into character already? I liked it. Fuck off, he says, but there's a smile in there. You're going to freeze. He stops, waiting on Key's concern. I'm not. This under armor is thermal or whatever. It's meant to keep me warm. His smirk stretches just a little wider. You have to produce body heat for it to hold in body heat. Lan shoves him lightly at the shoulder, and Keith takes a good-natured step back. Don't sass me, kitten. And that, Keith's smirk drops. Looks person as his eyes widen, and Lance knows that look. That's his embarrassed, blushy face. He wishes for all the world Keith didn't have face paint on, because who would bet his life on Keith's face being bright red right now? Interesting. Very interesting. His lips curl into a slow, mischievous smile, and Keith scowls. Not a word. He drops his voice, leaning in and tilting his chin down, giving Keith a very pointed one tone. What if that word is kitten? He sees the flash of something in Keith's eyes, but he doesn't get to revel in it before Honk is there. I think Keith's right. You're going to freeze. He leans back, out of Keith's space, and grinning as he watches the boy take a deep, shorting breath. Honk, buddy, my man, don't worry about it. I'll be fine. Looks dubious at best. If you say so. Besides, even if I do freeze, it'll be worth it. I mean, look at me. He steps back and strikes a pose. His own zombie outfit is one of his own design. He wears tight black Under Armour leggings and long-sleeved shirt, meant to look like a wetsuit. Over that, he wears obnoxiously bright swim trunks that are torn and bloodied. Attached to his thigh is a stuffed shark, sewn in by the mouth to look like it's biting him. The shark itself is also torn and stained to look like a zombie shark. Its hair is a carefully constructed mess with a bloody snorkel and goggles perched haphazardly atop. As if on cue, Pitch, Honk, and Allura all chant, Shark bait! Ooh, ha ha! While pounding fists in the closest solid surfaces. Sorry to break up with the party, Karan says, phone is in. But we need to leave soon. If we're going to make it there on time, we'll still have to walk across campus. They have been getting ready in the lobby of Local Lion, and they shuffle out the closed coffee shop while Karan and Allura lock up. As they shuffle along the streets and wade through the buildings of campus, they pass plenty of other people also dressed as zombies, all headed in the same direction. None of them find it strange when he puts himself next to Key, playfully bumping his hip and trying to trip his feet. Key just smiles, shoving him lightly and playfully, hissing just to make Lance laugh. The students gather by the hundreds outside the student union, all of them dressed in a wide variety of zombie costumes, all with painted faces and fake blood. Lance is inclined to say that his friends look the best, but he might be a little biased. As the time neared 8, the crowd thickened, shifting and riving with a mass of zombies. And when the campus bell tower tolled, the zombie march began. A thick mass of people all in costume, shambling through campus. They move between buildings, along pathways, and out onto the streets. They're stuck firmly in the middle of the crowd. Impossible to see the front or the back as the mass fins and stretches to fit everyone on the sidewalk. They shamble, dragging their feet and groan. A chorus of brains and other wordless mumbles. They snap and snarl at pedestrians and claw at the open air toward cars. Students who aren't part of the march grin and take pictures. Poor, unaware townsfolk either laugh, look terrified, or ignore them altogether. As they shuffle through the streets of downtown, they snarl in the windows of restaurants and shops. Some actually have their waitresses hold the door shut, a fearful look of their eyes, like the several hundred zombie students would actually enter their establishments. Please. They're far more respectful than that. The mass of the march stretches in bunches, a constantly riding shape of far too many students of the simple city streets. Lance has his fun, laps with other zombies, lashes out at pedestrians and cars, makes sure his little zombie shark is visible, poses for few pictures. All the while, he makes sure he's still loosely grouped with his friends. They seem to be having fun too. Hunk howls and growls. Alert moans off cliche corporate phrases and statements. Sheer and Cran groans. Hedge holds their arms straight in front of them, stumbling on their feet as they groan out classic Dumbledore lines. Keith growls and hisses, getting into character like the rest of them, but having the scout to suit the whole zombie theme. Lance catches himself smiling far too often and has to school his features back into something more, far more undead. It takes a couple hours for them to make it through the predetermined route. It's a big loop through campus and around town that eventually drops them back off in front of the student union and at the quad where they started. As the marchers start to fill into the space, they group up, clump, take pictures, and it takes a while for the whole mass to make it back with how stretched they had been. As they fell into the quad, his group of friends starts to separate. They bump around and segmented as they try to weave through the masses of people, both moving and stationary. Lance takes his opportunity to grab Keith's arm, pulling him suddenly to the side when the rest of their friends have their backs turned. Keith makes a noise of surprise that's lost in the general clamor around them, and once he realizes it's Lance, he gives in easily. Lance drags him deep into the crowd, weaving through the standing groups until they find a pocket of their own with little traffic. Out of sight of their friends, Lance turns to him, only to find Keith already watching him. There's a slight tilt to his head, a small tug of a smile at the corner of his lips, and amusement crinkling at the edges of his eyes as he lifts an eyebrow. Lance just grins, using the hands he's holding to spin Keith around. He presses into his back, wrapping his arms around his waist and hooking his chin over his shoulder. I'm cold. It's not a lie. His friends were right when they said he wasn't wearing enough layers, but the excitement and movement of the march had kept the worst of it at bay. Keith, however, is warm. Really warm. Lance passes himself to his back without shame, nuzzling into the warmth of him as best he can without smearing his face paint. He feels Keith's chuckle rumble through his chest, and arms come down gently over his own. I warned you. Yeah, yeah, you were right. You're so smart. Now shut up and warm me up. There's that chuckle again, and hands start moving along his forearms where they wrap loosely around Keith's waist. They stay like that for several long moments, swaying gently just for the movement of it. They speak together in low, hushed tones, talking about the different costumes they see around them. I saw another cat zombie, Keith hums, tilting his head back to rest it on Lance's shoulder. Did you? Yeah, during the march. She didn't look as good as you, though. Keith grins, and it puts those teeth on display. They fit perfectly, and in the dim lightning from street lights around the quad, they almost look real. Lance hums slightly, gazing down at him. I think it's the teeth. She didn't have any, and they're definitely cute on you. You should wear them again sometime. There's a low, rough quality to his voice, one that kinda slipping in unintentionally, but he rolls with anyway. Something sly and playful in a way that's definitely not innocent. And judging from the way Keith's eyes go lidded and his smile curls a little, he can tell Keith hears it too. He straightens, turning around in Lance's arm and slipping his own to rest lazily on Lance's shoulders. A shiver racks down his spine as Keith's fingers lightly play with the hair at the nape of his neck. Keith's eyes look him over curiously, that amused smile fixed firmly in place. Are you turned on by my fake teeth? And yeah, there's really no reason to hide it if Keith is gonna be all blunt about it. One hand slips around to his lower back, pressing him forward and more firmly against him as he flashes Keith a cheeky grin. I'm turned on by the idea of your teeth. Keith starts a short laugh. Furry. For you? Definitely. Lance grinned only once as he ducks his head down, gently bumping his nose against Keith's. How gross do you think it would be to kiss with all this zombie makeup? Rated gross. I kinda wanna do it anyway. Keith tilts his head, the small smile still in place as he tilts his chin up, perfect and ready and waiting. All Lance has to do is close the distance. Me too. It's not a pleasant experience. The pain through crack and fin around their lips. Still not that Lance can taste it. The fake blood is dried and gross. Sexual isn't the one he wants to associate with kissing, but he does it anyway. As well as Keith. They press into each other, chuckling against each other's lips and the wholly awful experience. But near them willing to pull away. Beyond the smell of cheap paint and latex, he could smell a hint of the coffee he had before the march. He playfully licks into Keith's mouth and revels in the way the boy melts against him, into him. The way Keith sighs into his mouth as shivers running down his spine and his stomach doing these little flips. Unfortunately, he doesn't get enjoy it for long before there's a loud gasp and a high-pitched squeal that he knows. He pulls away from Keith, head snapping back as his hands grab onto hips and push, putting a good solid amount of space between them. He barely has time to register the surprised look on Keith's face before his head is whipping to the side and Allura! She's standing there, in a space that had parted between two groups of people, a wide grin on her lips and eyes twinkling, practically blazing like stars as they light up. She's up on her toes, bouncing, with her hands loosely fisted, folded up to her chest. I knew it. At the sound of her voice, Keith's head whips around and glances sideways in time to see them morph into a look of horror. I knew it. They look at each other, mouths agape and eyes wide. I knew it. They snap their attention to her, both of them too frozen to do or say much. I knew it. Her words are cut off as Shira's head comes down the lower half of her face. She doesn't seem at all surprised, but she does send him a quick glances before looking back to them. I'll just, uh, the shirt sleeve without an arm moves, giving the impression that he had been trying to gesture with it before a sheepish look comes over his face as he cups. Get her out of here. Uh, carry on. Sure, look, I told you. I knew something was. She has her hands on his, pulling it down from her mouth. Allura, the firmness of his tone and the graveness of his frown has her stopping in her tracks. She wits a little under his gaze, going from excited to abashed in no time flat. He sighs, already turning her around and wrapping his arm around her shoulders, leading her away. Give them a little privacy, okay? They hear her mumble. Okay, before the two of them are swallowed up again by the crowd. My God, Lance says as the breath he had been holding rushes out of him. He feels Keith back to him and drops his forehead to his shoulder, rolling it back and forth, not caring if he stains Keith's shirt. He groaned. Oh my God. Shiro can convince her to keep quiet. You don't know Laura very well if you think it'll be that easy. He pauses, then lifts his head, eyes narrowing to Keith. Wait, Shiro didn't look surprised at all. Keith's eyes widen just a fraction before he looks away, shifting his weight under Lance's scrutiny. He'd, figured it out. Wow, Keith, you're terrible at keeping secrets. He deadpans, but he's grinning when Keith looks back up at him, and he certainly deserves it when Keith punches him on the shoulder. You're the one who dragged me away to make out when our friends are right there. He shrugs, headlong to the side. What can I say? I'm a weak man. Want to slip away and go back to your apartment? I don't think I can face Allura right now. Keith's body sags with relief, a wicked smile creeping across his lips. Yes. Okay, now I can see where that going on, and they're at the campus, and they're going for their zombie march. It starts at 8 o'clock. They're all going out. The zombies scare them or laugh them. Anything that's possible to, get themselves worth it. And then, most importantly, where Keaton lands, they're finally share themselves a kiss. And now, Allura have been looking at them suspiciously, and they knew it that they were each other's sons. And Allura got them first at hand, and then Shiro figured that. Oh my God! Now it builds up to the box. Like it's like stacking yourselves up against the box, and you never know where that happens. But oh my God, is that really crazy? That is. I cannot believe that where it is going to happen. Cause I, I kind of knew it. It's a dramatic irony. Just it caught us that one an irony, but you know where that is. And oh no, yep, they're so terrible at secrets. Well, especially the Keith. Keith is terrible at keeping his secrets, and their promises just broke. Now everyone knows what they're doing because they're now in front of friends, and oh man, they're in trouble. Not a trouble, negatively, not a negative trouble, but a positive trouble. Yeah, hopefully they try to cover it up with it. Okay, let's just get this last part of the text and then we're done.
How bad is it? She hasn't told the others, but she got that I have a secret grin on her face that's making the others suspicious. Great. Fantastic. Can you make sure she stays quiet about it? I can, but it'll cost you. Anything. You're lucky I love you. I know. Are you sure you want to keep this a secret? She only knows that you guys are at the minimum making out. She doesn't know about the whole soulmate thing. She better not be reading over your shoulder right now. And you better delete that later. Don't worry. She's helping Pitch clean off their face paint. And I will. But my point, doesn't matter if they know you guys are fooling around. It's the 21st century. It's not like that's taboo anymore, especially with our generation. Lance doesn't want them to know, and neither do I. What we have right now is special. I like how things are right now, and I don't want to ruin it. We want our private lives to stay private. As your older brother, I feel like I need to be honest and tell you that you're making a huge mess of this. But as your oldest friend, I feel like I also need to let you know that I know why you're doing this, and I understand. Even if I don't agree with it, thanks. And I know I just don't know what to do anymore. Why is this so complicated? Life likes to throw you curveballs to see how you deal with them. They make you grow as a person and you learn from them. Life was never meant to be easy. You sound like that. As long as you own up to your choices and deal with the consequences of them, you can make as big a mess as you want. Now you sound like mom. She used to tell me that so I would clean up the studio after I spilled paint everywhere. You always cleaned up your mess then, and I have faith that you'll clean up this mess too. When you're ready. Thanks, Shiro. No problem. That was my brotherly wisdom for the week. Now, if you excuse me, Pitchbed Hunk could eat more habanero peppers than me, and I intend to prove them wrong. You're gonna eat till you puke, aren't you? If that's what it takes, Keith. If that's what it takes. Tell Pidge I put $10 on Honk. Lance says 20 on Honk.
Keeping themselves this a secret because Allure knew it, but doesn't know about the. Well, she knew about the minimal makeup, but not the soulmate because they're not yet. I just totally myself a mistake. Actually, I made myself a mistake because Allura knew that Lance and Kate are making out, but she doesn't know about the soulmate yet because there are a little more precise and starts to get a little bit fishy for her. And now Shiro tries to cover up for this secret between him and Keep about this soulmate. And oh my god, it all makes sense now. It kind of builds it up to where it sets out, and but at the end, there's a lot to it, and you're gonna see more of that one very soon. So probably check that out the next time I'm gonna read chapter 9. So, okay, guys, that is the end of this story here, but there's gonna be more of this. So, whatever it's up to you, I'm cool with it. I'm gonna see you guys next time. So long, everybody. I'm out of here.